Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 15th meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Please take note of exits around the room in case of mishap, and now join me as we salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for Jeffrey Groves Estates. Making a motion over the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
As a reminder, this is the underlying site plan approval. Mr. Kaufman and his consultants have come through. They have, the part of the subdivision that was left standing is still intact. The site plan has changed as well as the subdivision. They're still taking some time to meet the conditions. Mr. Kaufman can enumerate those, although he did enumerate them in an email very succinctly earlier today.
Thank you.
But in order for the new approval not to lapse, the underlying approval can't lapse either, so that's what this is on. Mr. Kaufman, welcome.
Well, hi, everybody. We are...
Please make sure you speak into the microphone.
I'm
You
sorry.
can move it so that...
Louis Kaufman for the applicant, North Course LLC. So we have tried to meet your conditions in as expedited a way as possible. And Dutchess County is not feeling urgency that the board provides us. So there was 2 reviews, Dutchess County Department of Health, and then there's Dutchess County Water and Wastewater. They are reviewing the sewer treatment plant and the distribution and collection systems and just the underlying site plan and subdivision. And so Dutchess County Department of Health is good with it. Wastewater gave me an 85-point letter, and so we worked through that.
Methodically, I'm sure, 85
Yes.
comments.
And so but that should be close. Dutchess County Department of Public Works
Oh.
took 5 months to respond to my initial request to see if they liked, if they had any problem with our filed and recorded subdivided map with unchanged roads, and they did have a problem. They wanted site easements and things, which of course they would have gotten into permit stage. So I'm hoping that, I'd have to comply with it anyway for the permit, so we'll see what happens. We are now having responded to their comment letter, and hopefully they will act favorably. I mean, they're not saying no to anything. They did want us to expand the roads, which are not their roads, and we pointed that out to them. And but we may end up having to open the mouth of the road a little bit as it enters onto North Cross Road, which we're perfectly willing to do, which of course requires that we probably change the subdivision map that's already in place. But I'll keep trying. And so here I am tonight, asking for my first extension. Hopefully won't need a second extension, but we keep plugging away.
And that will be your next item on the agenda would be the 90-day extension of time. This is just, this is
this is just
another extension. You've been extending this for a while
Yeah, I know.
because this would be the one where you have to start construction in a year
Okay.
and complete it within 2 years.
Right.
So this has been extended many times.
Many times, and
That's
we had
okay.
it reapproved about 5 years ago.
This is true.
Because
It's
I
been
forgot to request the
Oh,
extension in
yes.
time. Oops. But,
You haven't done that
so
again.
hopefully I'm time. Now I'm like, Cynthia, I'm going to prepare my next extension letter now.
No.
I'll hand it in tonight.
No.
But
We want
That
you.
would be timely.
We want you to meet the conditions
Yeah,
of
we're
the
trying.
new approval.
we're trying.
So any comments from the consultants? I do want to just add that in that 5-month laguna, we'll call it, the gap of time it took for DCDPW, Department of Public Works, to respond to you, our engineering consultant was trying to push that forward too from behind the scenes. It's just not easy with Department of Public Works.
No.
Yeah.
No, we're not the only ones, I understand, in the same position. There's just a...
I mean, I've had, had and have projects, with them that
Yeah.
are 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing.
Any
Yeah.
comments from the board?
So I'm in good company.
I'll say that Keith, Tad, and I are meeting next week to start going over conditions, do a status update on conditions, because this has been sitting there for so long, we've all kind of lost track of where everything is. So we're gonna sit, go through the conditions, and try to see if we can move this
Maybe that will
forward.
bring them some good,
Energy?
there you go.
Juju. Any comments from the board or questions for Mr. Kaufman?
I just have a quick question on this 85-point letter on wastewater. How long do you think that's manageable and doable?
Well, one was note on page CS 101 that you have to go to the board for a 48-hour notice. Third point, note on CS 102
Okay, so-
that you need to point out,
You believe they're all of a minor nature?
there's nothing substantive.
Technical.
Oh, good, okay.
Technical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good question, Ms. Wasser.
Yeah.
Would anyone from the public like to speak about this application? There being none, making a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And who has this resolution?
I do. Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, resolution to grant 1-year extension to all deadlines, Jeffrey Groves Estates. May 15th, 2019, resolution number 68-12G, whereas, times a bunch. Now therefore be resolved that the planning board hereby grants a 12-month extension to pursuant to section 108-9.6B of the code of the time in which the applicant must commence substantial construction to and including June 14th, 2020, and the time in which to complete construction to and including June 14th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Let's hope you can get through what remains to be seen shortly. The next item on the agenda would be a resolution to grant an extension of the time in which to meet conditions. Just for the board's edification in the audience, under our code, anytime that we require an extension of the time of approval in which to start or complete construction, it does require a public hearing, which is why we offered public comment. This is so that in cases like Jeffrey Groves, where there's been more than a decade of extensions, if a neighbor or someone knows of new information that didn't come to us, they can always supply it. I didn't anticipate there'd be any comments, like I told you, because I think we got all of them through with the new
Yeah, my
approval.
engineer was questioning it, I wasn't. I was just disappointed, not disappointed, grateful that whatever that accident was coming north, it was cleared up just as I arrived there.
Good news. So this does not require a public hearing. Does the board have any questions about this extension?
Nope.
It's fairly standard. I know you just went through, you heard Mr. Kaufman say what agencies he's still waiting for, which is primarily DCDPW, and basically approval of your wastewater treatment facility. That's about it.
Yeah.
So who has this resolution?
I do.
Thank you.
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, resolution granting extension of time to complete conditions of subdivision and site plan approvals. Jeffrey Groves Estates, Re-Subdivision. May 15th, 2019, resolution number 2018-04E, whereas, now therefore it be resolved that the planning board hereby grants the applicant its first 90-day extension of time to satisfy all conditions of conditional final plat approval to and including September 3rd, 2019. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby grants the applicant its first 90-day extension of time to satisfy all conditions of conditional site plan approval to and including September 3rd, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries.
We're missing Chris.
We are, I know.
Down there in the second row.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Lou.
Careful driving. There's something in the air.
Yeah, be careful. Ann actually saw a
A
head-on
slow motion head-on collision.
After
As
avoiding.
part of that accident.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very wild.
The next item on the agenda is a workshop for ATHANAS East Solar Farm. Applicants are seeking site plan approval as well as special use permit approval to erect a solar farm located at 1436 Route 9G. To us, this is known as ATHANAS East because there are two properties under consideration, both owned by the same gentleman, Mike ATHANAS. The east side, as we noted, have noted several times during workshop, is the least sort of environmentally constrained. It's least constrained in every way. During a site walk, we noted that the wetland that it crosses already has a farm road crossing it. They're not proposing further incursions into the wetland itself. It is an unregulated, in terms of DEC wetland, it's a small one, so it'd be Army Corps of Engineers. The back areas where the solar farms are proposed have been primarily or mostly already denuded of trees because it was a working farm. There are sections of trees that need to be removed. In those areas, there's required buffering, and the applicants proposed landscaping along each side to go through. So the purpose of tonight really is to do a secret determination. The submission that we received since the last meeting is the same one that we were shown last time, which had some updates to it. Can I turn this over to you? Do you want to add anything? Sorry.
I thought I would just address a few issues that came up at the last meeting. The seed mix issue, the history on that and why there was differentiation of the seed mix to be used within the array versus outside the array was that initially we had recommended a conservation seed mix throughout the site. And the board's and the consultant's request changed to the pollinator mix for outside the array. But the basis for the preference for the conservation seed mix was that it is a lower growing vegetation, which has several advantages. It would stay below the level of the photovoltaic panels. We intend to mow within the array area, so the mowing kind of is at odds with the feature of the pollinator mix of being flowering. So
How often do you intend to mow?
twice a year.
That's not really at odds at all with pollinator mixes.
Okay. Desire to avoid higher growing, ultimately late summer, potentially dry vegetation. And the seed mix that we specified is hardier, better root systems, just likely to be a better cover. It is, well, obviously, if the board prefers pollinator mix everywhere, that's what will be incorporated in the project. It has been suggested that there is a possible kind of compromise, which is to use the conservation seed mix with bird's foot trefoil and clover, which are low growing but
We
flowering.
have some flowers on them,
So,
which the bees love.
yeah.
Yeah.
With what?
Clover.
Say it again?
Bird's foot trefoil and clover. So just something to put out there, but obviously whatever the preference is what
I
will
think
be
what's been
used.
driving, I'm not going to speak for everyone, I'll let them speak by themselves or individually, but I think what's been driving at least my thought on pollinator mixes is we just had a report from the UN that we're losing close to 1 million species in the next 20 years. A lot of those are pollinators, and pollinators are vital to agriculture.
Correct.
That's really why we're trying, I think that's what, when we've been viewing these before, that's been the discussion.
Okay.
That noted, I understand why the conservation mix would be more easily maintained because it's also got clover, fescue, it's just grasses. So, and they're all low growing, so the maintenance would be a lot simpler, but
Right.
it probably wouldn't attract birds, bats, bees, et cetera. So it'll be up
Right.
to the board as we go along, but I appreciate that you answered that.
Okay.
Anything else you want to address?
The issue of mitigation for wetlands encroachment, the rather small areas of wetlands encroachment. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did not respond to the construction notification, so
Well, it's
That
been
is-
30 days or
40,
amount of time?
yeah.
In
I
addition,
think
I'll just
45.
point this out again.
there's no time.
There's already a road there. There's a farm road there. Yeah, we don't circulate to Army Corps. They get in touch with them directly. There's already a road there, and you're not proposing widening the road substantially. It's also, once construction is finished, I believe that there will only be one vehicle trip or two per month, depending on the inverters needing to be repaired or any other mechanics.
You're cleaning the panels, yeah, that traffic impact were discussed, and it's post-construction, it's limited to
Minimal.
3 or 4 entries a year.
With a working farm, you'd have far more vehicle crossings of that stream on a daily basis. I should say stream of that water body. And we also put into the record last time that it's a seasonal kind of wetland. I've been there now twice, and one time there was standing water, one time there wasn't. This is during the heavier rain season that we've had
Like right
here.
now?
Right,
Yep, like right now. So, thank you.
okay. The overhead line issue was addressed in what we filed last week included, I've also forwarded a communication from Central Hudson, which briefly describes their preference for overhead line at the interconnection point.
Right, I was going to say, so our code requires it be buried to the maximum extent practical or possible. So we would try to bury it as it goes from the arrays over to the connection point, but once there, Central Hudson has a strong preference apparently for it to be overhead because that's what they're used to using, basically.
Right, right.
They're an organization slow to change. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And for ATHANAS, the traffic impact issue we addressed in the filing. So.
Yes, I want to thank you for submitting the traffic impact narrative so quickly. It enabled our consultant to go through and review it and fill out the part 2 for us. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add, Dawn?
Nope, that's it.
Let me start with our consultants. Any comments, Ms. Axelson?
So following up on the traffic, I was very, very surprised at the request for a traffic impact study, and I looked at your narrative, and it was very helpful, and I did a little absolute worst case, you know, based on, you said, a certain number of vehicles, and figured out that there might be 144 total trips per year, which is 0.4 trips per day. So, anyway. I'm glad you spoke about the overhead wires. And those were our main concerns, I think. I don't think there was anything else you needed me to
Not
look
in terms
into.
of seeker. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Sotero?
No, I'm good for seeker purposes.
Ms. Polidoro?
No comments on seeker issues.
Thank you. Let me start to my right. Ms. Dexter, any comments?
Just thank you very much for the explanation on these items that we had questioned. I do, I guess, going back to the conservation mix, so does that actually include things like clover and trefoil and fescue?
I
They'd have
think
to
she's
supplement
proposing to
trefoil,
add them to the conservation.
They would add that?
I think that's what you were suggesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
those,
okay.
that's not part of the
That's
Okay.
standard
part
number
of it
6
now.
conservation
It's
mix.
just grass.
Oh, okay, so I
And clover,
really,
and clover, in the conservation.
and
I thought
what?
she was adding the clover.
They can add different types of clover, but there's a clover that's in there. It's a spreading clover that's really hard to get out once it's in because it's got a really knotty root system. It's in the conservation design.
So I guess I'd like to weigh in and say that sounds like a fair compromise. I do understand the need to keep the height down.
Right.
And I've been, to your point about, the loss of pollinator species, I think all that works hand in hand. So if you have the taller pollinator mix around the outside, I think it brings diversity a bit. So you have different types of selection for the flora and the fauna to snack on. And I've been noticing lately that even bees, they love dandelions. So, I mean, if it's a flower, and the clover is usually beautiful and makes great honey, so I'm fine with that kind of a compromise. And I appreciate you doing your research on that.
Thank you for providing some clear direction there. I appreciate it. No, really. Ms. Wasser?
No further comments.
Mr. Pickett?
I agree with Ann. I think I prefer pollinator, but if you could use it in non-critical areas along with the other grasses, I think that'd be perfect.
And Ms. Weiser?
I have nothing to add.
Then, to give the clearest direction, I'll agree that let's do the pollinator mix in the outer areas, and if you can supplement the conservation mix with the trefoil, then I think we're there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
And we're not in a public hearing, so there's no public comment. Anybody have any questions about the part 2 of the environmental assessment form that Ms. Axelson completed and sent out earlier?
Nope.
No.
Then we'll stipulate that it's been read for the record.
Yep.
And who has this resolution?
I do. Resolution adopting a determination of significance, negative declaration, ATHANAS East Solar Farm, May 15th, resolution number 2018-12A. Whereas times 7 or 8 clauses. Now therefore be it resolved that for the reasons set forth in the EAF environmental assessment form and supplemental materials, the planning board hereby adopts a negative declaration Finding that the project as proposed will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts, and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby directs the secretary to the planning board to send notice of the determination of significance to the environmental notice bulletin for publication and to make all other required filings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Dana, would you like a copy of the resolution?
Yes, please.
You can have my paper copy,
Okay.
and I believe Ms. Whitman will be sending one out tomorrow anyway.
Okay, great.
The next item on the agenda is a similar situation. It's Cream Street Solar Farm. The applicant is seeking a site plan and special use permit approval for a solar farm to be located on two properties, 129 and 133 Cream Street. This is also, again, a working farm. If the audience wants to look, you'll see that there's sort of a similar situation, a long access road that's been used before for farming purposes. This site is also located at the top of a fairly steep ridge line. It was confirmed after the last meeting that the electrical line that runs, let's see if I get that. Electrical line that runs north-south will be buried. The electrical line that will transmit the energy down to the connection point is proposed to be elevated.
That's actually shown on the other side.
There you go. I believe there's 4 poles, if I counted correctly.
Yes.
Along the way. The applicants have indicated that they believe that this is better to hide the poles within the existing tree line. Also, it will result in less removal of tree lines than if it had to be trenched and buried. That certainly would please me, put it that way, because it means that there's additional buffering that's intact, that's natural to the adjacent parcel, but I'll let the rest of the board address that. I think that was the only issue that was outstanding.
Can you just remind me, we had public comment, and where was, with the laser, where was the public concerned about?
Along here, because if you're
line.
over here, because this extends up, this is one of the, if you're across the street, this is one of those that you would see the sunrise right around here, and they didn't want it poking through, seeing the sunrise through electrical lines. So they're buried, and I believe Mr. Horan said he had no problems with it
Right.
being elevated or not buried along the side. Because again, that wouldn't really be in anybody's sight line, except for the property here if you're facing that direction or facing this direction. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just, since I'd given you linear feet of line the last time, which turned out not to be right, I just wanted to give you the new data, which is underground line comprises 2,330 linear feet and overhead now 1,080 linear feet. Again, as Mr. Dupree said, the east-west portion along the property line. And the seed mix issues and the wetlands encroachment issues were similar.
Same thing.
Right. So, nothing additional.
Thank you. Comments, Ms. Axelson?
Actually, I have a question. I just looked at the submittal quickly to be able to speak about readiness for seeker negative declaration on both ATHANAS East and Cream Street, but I assumed that we were to go ahead and do a thorough review of the submittal and generate a review memorandum.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, fine, that's it.
Because we'll be in a public hearing in 2 weeks, and I'd like to have
Right.
any comments on the revisions
Right.
as we go forward.
And whatever I said about ATHANAS East.
Applies here, too.
Applies here.
Thank
There
you.
you go, ditto.
We're being very efficient tonight. That's great. Comments, Mr. Satara?
Not for seeker, no.
Any other comments you want to throw in now?
No, I mean, there's some items that we're gonna be, reviewing.
Microphone, please.
Oops.
Yeah, there's some items we're gonna be looking at on their current, submission. I know we had some on, the drainage and the access road, so we'll look at those.
Great, thank you. Ms. Polidoro?
No.
Ms. Weiser, any comments?
No comments.
Mr. Pickett?
No comment.
Ms. Wasser?
No comment.
Ms. Dexter?
Thank you for bearing that line. I know the neighbor they'll appreciate that.
Right, and that, just to clarify, that was a misunderstanding
Okay.
between us and the
Yeah, I
applicant.
thought there was
It
a
had
bit of-
always intended to be underground, and we just,
I think that's understandable to representing 3 of these projects.
Yeah, that might
Each of
start to
them,
blur a little.
each of them a little different, 2 pretty easy from our viewpoint, 1 more complicated. So
Right.
I think that's easy to get a little mixed up in your communication.
Right.
I think that's an
So I'm
issue.
glad it's been clarified.
Yep.
So who has this resolution?
I do. Resolution
And, oh, I
adopt,
should add, did anyone have any questions on Part 2 for this project that was completed by our planning consultant, Ms. Axelson?
No?
Nope.
Okay,
No.
so.
Well done.
Therefore, it's in the record. We've all read it and had a chance to review it. Thank you. Sorry, Bruce.
no problem. Resolution adopting a determination of significance, negative declaration, Cream Street Solar Farm, May 15, 2019, Resolution 2018-28A. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that for the reasons set forth in the EAF and supplemental materials, the planning board hereby adopts a negative declaration, finding that the project as proposed will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts, and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be repaired. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby directs the secretary to the planning board to send notice of the determination of significance to the environmental notice bulletin for publication and to make all other required filings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. By the way, we used to just say the E and B, and people in the audience would say, what is that? So we started spelling it out, environmental notice bulletin. Less acronyms are always helpful, I think.
So I went back and.
So, Ms. Dana, we'll see you in 2 weeks, a continuation of the public hearing, at which time we'll have comments on the new plans.
June 5th?
Oh, I'm sorry.
3 weeks, yeah.
3 weeks, that's
Oh,
right.
right.
This is our second week in May, meeting in May. In the meantime,
A 3-week break.
if there's any reason to have an offline meeting, we'll schedule it, but I think we're pretty far along on this.
On these, I guess we could update the board. We were contacted by an
Yeah,
attorney
good
regarding
idea.
ATHANAS West. So they do want to schedule an offline
Oh, right,
meeting
I saw
to
that.
talk about the issues with that particular application. And there were several.
Several is the right term, 4 identified thus far. So the last I heard, I believe we're trying to meet on Monday.
Monday, yeah. I might be able to make it for like an
Real
hour.
quick, that's what I thought, that's why I included you.
Yep.
Because you're kind of one of our go-to people when it comes to solar as well, since you were in the, well, no, you were in the field for a while, so.
Yes, no, I
Anyway,
know.
thank you, have a safe drive. Yes?
Thank you. Well, I didn't see emails in late afternoon, so what time on Monday is under
I- I
discussion?
They're still working it out.
It hasn't all been established yet, but we
Okay.
were working somewhere,
Sometime after 2, I thought.
we're between 11 and 5, something. 2 o'clock is,
available until after
I can switch if I have to, but I'd prefer to make the appointment that I have now, but if not, I can always
Thought it
meet
was at
earlier.
7.
Right, we're trying to do it
I'd like to get this
without-
thing done.
Sure.
That's why. So whatever, I believe that we still are waiting for 2 more people to hear back from as to time. So we'll work it out. So I'll probably see you Monday.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next time on the agenda is Hudson Valley Hospice, but could I get you guys to switch this out for PLT storage yard reconstruction? The reason why I say that is we're missing one of our board members, and I know Mr. Berger represents both. Is that okay with you, Mr. Kaminsky?
And he's on his way.
Okay.
That one started at 7.
Oh, oops.
My God.
That's what we're assuming.
No, just that one time. So yes, if you guys don't mind, we'll go ahead and start
Thank you.
PLT.
Told you 6:30.
You're nothing if not flexible, right? Thank you, we do appreciate that.
If you have the powers to keep doing that, please do.
If I had those kind of powers, I would
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here, yes.
So this is the first time the board is hearing about this application. However, we've had several offline meetings. The applicants will be seeking site plan amendment approval as well as special use permit approval to reconstruct basically a burnt building, as well as make some other site amenities and improvements. This is located at 501-5013 South Point Turnpike. The applicants were before us, I don't remember how many years ago, for site plan approval, during which time they were granted it. There's a lot going on at this site, recycling of materials, storage, fuel sales, lots of stuff, but it's a benefit, I believe, to our community to have this size of business in it, as well as the kind of business in it. It's also, for people who travel along the South Point Turnpike, which is here, it's actually buffered well by other properties. You kind of have to slow down and look straight
crane
through to
your
really
neck.
see right up there to see anything.
Before the fire, it was tough because the building being like a beige color, it kind of blended.
It blended in with everything else.
Everything else.
And I'll point out that the reason why they're in for special use permit is there's already an expansion of the use. There's a storage area in through here where it was originally trees. And they're also proposing the addition of new buildings and to square off the corner right here, as well as a few other things. So they've calculated the percentage increase that they're looking for. But let me turn it over to you guys, and please state your name for the records, and remember to use the microphone as you go around.
And there's also a portable one, so you can pass that around, too.
Okay.
You're on.
Joe Berger, Berger Engineering.
Yep.
Michelle Zerfus, Berger Engineering.
Patrick Gleason, PLT.
Laura Gleason, Knoll, PLT.
Nice to meet you. We haven't met the other wife, so to speak, so far. Wife,
The other wife.
I'm not
Okay.
a wife.
unless you're a sister.
Sister.
Aha! I didn't know there was a third person in the.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick,
Hey,
Laura,
Laura.
Tommy.
Yeah, PLT.
Oh, PLT.
She's the
I could have had the
Laura
VA.
Tom.
There you go. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to describe, I've already given a little bit of the actions that you're looking for, but do you want to go into detail for our TV audience?
Basically, as everyone knows, we had a major fire on the site. The building has been basically burned at this point. We're still with the insurance companies on what's going on with this and that, and who knows when that's going to all be somewhat resolved. But we do have businesses on the site that we employ over 35 people that we have to keep going. I just can't
Yeah.
say stop while you guys find another job. So, and like you say, we do have operations on the site with the recycling, which is soil tech, which, we're into season now. It is basically what we do is we take in material from people, and, basically what you dig up. In other words, blacktop, concrete, dirt. We separate it. We sell a screened material, like a 2-inch minus for people who need just dirt. And we also take whatever the concrete blacktop is, we bring in a person who has a crushing operation and we turn it into an item 4 sub-base material, which we either use ourselves or we sell to other contractors. We deliver and all that. That's kind of an ongoing, and it has built up through the years since we started back when we originally moved in back in 2000 and something like that, when we first moved in. And, we did ask, that was one of the reasons of moving, is when we did come here before we bought the property, that was one of the things we did ask, can we do this here? And you graciously said yes, because we are kind of hidden back there that you don't see it. So that's ongoing, and now the construction season is going. The difficulty with the fire is, one, we've lost a lot of equipment. We've lost a lot of everyday tools. The mechanics truck is gone. All the tools are in the mechanics truck. Everything like that. So it is making things difficult. We lost our mechanic shop, which is even worse for us because, this is where we fix things, from a pickup all the way up to an excavator. We were trying to look ahead after the fire of, how are we going to do this? And still, we have to demo the building. It still has to come down. Part of the reason that we're asking on the smaller building, the proposed smaller building, is so hopefully by winter, we can have this building put together so that we can move our mechanic shop in, so that we can tear down the big building. It isn't an option for us to just go somewhere else. We're too big of an operation, and we've had offers from Sun Up Enterprises, who's going out to move into his shop or something. It just doesn't work to have us in one place and all the equipment in a mechanic shop way over here. It's the day-to-day stuff. The simple thing is that, the chainsaw won't start or this won't start. Well, if the mechanic's 10 miles away, that doesn't really work. So that is why, for us, that little building, as a temporary measure, to get us through basically the winter. at this point. I mean, at this point, we're trying to utilize part of this big building that wasn't touched by the fire, but it's small. And like I said, we can't fit that
It's around
much in
here,
it.
I think.
Yeah.
Just in that
with
one
notches,
corner.
With the notches.
And we did get, we have power with Don Veith, with Central Hudson. A new transformer was put in, and we do have temporary power now. So that helps a lot. But we're still looking at other things on the site. Our fuel tanks are against, if you look at the original drawing where our fuel tanks are, they're right next to the other building. Part of the proposal is to move those fuel tanks to another spot that's within the regulations, and that's where they'll go.
On a concrete pad with electrical lighting.
Yes. But that's really what we're trying to do this as basically somewhat phased as we can do it, because we still have to operate at the same time. The other part that we're having issues with on site is from the fire is the roof of the main building was tied into the drainage system, all the gutters, everything. We're having problems with the drainage system because we think it's all getting clogged.
Sure.
Yes. What we're having now is, on the site visit, we have half a lake on one side because it's just not going. So to be honest with you, what we're really trying to, the three issues for us is redoing of the drainage from the drainage pond up, moving the fuel tanks to get them away from the building, and basically the little building, because we're having our fingers crossed that everything can go right with engineering and permits and everything else, is that by October we have a place for the mechanics to go to for the winter. That's really, it's just the struggle of day by day of like, all right, now what do we do? All right, let's try to do this, or let's try to do that. And like I said, even though most of the work on the construction end is usually somewhere else, it's still the home base for everything to come back to at night. And we're looking at a future of the reason for up into Mr. Baxter's property is that when we do demo the building, we're going to need a lot of room, and the problem is that we don't, with everything going on, there's just not enough room at this point. I don't know if there's any questions on your end.
You'll hear them in a little bit. Mr. Berger or Mrs. Zerfus, do you want to add anything technical to what Mr. Gleason had to say?
So the property line,
You're going to have to hold it right up.
the property line for PLT is right here. And this is their site. So what they want to do is just cut through, there's like one or two trees that they'd have to take down to make a breakthrough here, go over here to this property, put down some material and things just to protect it. This is a big hay field right now. Then they can move stuff onto here. There'd be silt fence and protection. That way they could work, everything would be up on here. Then when they were done, got all their equipment back off, they could restore this up here. And this is, the total disturbance would be less than an acre, so there'd be like 7/10 of an acre up here. Okay. It's about 7/10 of an acre up here, and it's a hay field that they'll be going over. So that's what this extra is, and that's a temporary pass-through, and because it's here, none of the stuff has to go out onto the road to be able to use the site.
Can you explain the phasing? Like
Yes.
what goes with what?
Okay, initially, what they'd like to do, because right now with the fuel tanks being right here by the building, and the building no longer having power, is they've been having to use generators to pump fuel out of the tanks, which is kind of a dangerous thing. So what they'd like to do is to be able to put these tanks up here as soon as possible. Maybe even before a public hearing or anything, just so that the safety. And now that the transformer's been moved from here to the power pole over here, they can run the electric line up to these so that it's a safer situation. The tanks the building inspector's been involved, and they're also under the state petroleum regulations. So that is the initial kind of safety, kind of want to move fast before going through all the normal steps. Then there'd be the phases. So kind of in phase one, it would be putting this building up. And this isn't necessarily the order, but this is just, phase one would be putting this building up, opening this up so they can move the stuff, installing this new drainage system because of the roof leaders, and then demoing this building. That'd be phase one. Then in phase two, they'd reconstruct this building with the extra 1,000 feet just squaring off the footprint. And this would be a new building. And then they would restore this, and the town engineers asked just for reconfirmation of the existing on-site wastewater treatment, the septic system. And that would be done as part of phase two, just to confirm that it'll meet the new building. This little building over here, this new building, there will be no bathrooms in here, so there's no need to worry about septic for that. So that'll be the phase.
And those are individual phases, so you can get COs at the end of each phase.
Right.
That was the suggestion that was brought to us, so we could get a CO for the little building before the big, before we did anything with the big building.
And you have pictures of the little building right now.
You just submitted, right, with colors.
Right, you just got them, I realized it was short.
Well, that's, I don't know about demo.
The big building would come back to you. Right now, they don't know exactly what is going to be on the big building because they're still working out other issues.
Right,
So
so-
even though you don't have the big building right now, they would come back to you for the big building.
You may want to just keep thinking about the phasing, because as it's phased, you have to do all the phase one improvements before you get that CO for your building. Okay.
So, depending how soon you get authorization to start working on the building that had, the fire, you've got the demo of the big building in phase one. Well, no, either that, or I guess we could call it a phase one.
A.
Yeah.
I don't know, we just don't want to have you held up on getting, the CO on, the small building, I mean.
Create three phases, 1, 2, and 3, make phase 2 the demo, and phase 3 would be the new building.
I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
That's actually logical, that makes sense.
Yeah, because, depending on when you can demo, the big building, we don't want that to hold up you getting the CO for the little building. So why don't you think about that? Maybe we need to do it in phase 1, 2, and 3.
Well, so let me start with a couple of things. First, I want to assure you that the town, at least the representatives of the town that are sitting up here, want to help an existing business that chose to invest in our town, one that employs 35 people. So we want to work with you on this. I think you already know that from our offline meetings. 2, I think what I should say is that if you want to move the tanks for safety purposes to here, you'll be doing so at your own risk. If for some reason we denied the application, you would have to put them back where they were originally. I don't see that happening, but I'm supposed to say that formally.
With the fuel tanks, the issue is basically to tear the building down.
You're going to have to move them anyway.
I
So
have to move them.
you
And the
understand
thing
what I'm
is,
saying?
we go through.
I can't tell you you're authorized
Yeah,
to do this without it being signed, but there's a lot of steps before I can sign the site plan, so you would be proceeding at your own risk. That's all.
Yeah.
Then, demoing doesn't, if we put the demo, depending on where you put it in which phase, all aspects of one phase need to be completed before a CO can be issued. That's TAD's, that's the way she works it out. So you could have a phase 1A, phase 1B, phase 1C, phase 1D. But demoing doesn't, I'm not sure it needs to be part of a phase because there's no CO. All you need is a permit from Mr. Westermeyer.
Right.
And for the board, since they're hearing about this the first time, I believe the reason why you can't demo is it's still under insurance investigation.
Yes.
And this is not for arson, in case someone's going to listen to me on TV.
You just have to figure it out.
Arson's not suspected at all. It's the nature of the business and the way it happened, so.
Different businesses than we can.
Can you
Right.
use the microphone?
Well, I think keeping demo in a phase might be
makes
helpful,
sense.
because this way we can look at when things are getting moved.
I just think it should be in its own separate phase, as I was trying to say.
Yes, I agree.
So we'll go to 3 phases, would be the easiest.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because
Agreed.
I want to get your CO of that new building too, because that's critical for your operations to be
Yes.
able to continue throughout the year.
It's,
again, you employ 35 people. This is a good business in Hyde Park. It's I've never heard a complaint.
No?
You're on a state road, which pretty much guarantees that the design speed is high and people don't crane like this to look at anything. So they just go by unassuming. So let me turn it over, those things noted, to consultants. Ms. Ackleson, initial comments?
Let me
Mr.
go
Sodaro.
first. Let me go first. So we went out to the site on Friday. Tad and I and Stephanie came. We met with Pat and Tom. And, I hadn't been there in a while, so, we walked around to make sure that we saw things for ourselves. So I guess if we start on the area over that's going to be used on the Baxter property, I didn't see really many issues with that. There's not going to be any trees that are going to be taken down. They're going to basically use an area that doesn't have any trees. So, and again, the silt fence will be up, so I don't think there's any major items over there. There's an area just off the, I guess off the north corner of the larger building where there's a bunch of tanks and all that. And Pat, maybe you can just, we want you to go put on the plan what those tanks are.
Oh,
They
I'm
weren't.
sorry, you mean up here?
Yeah, they
I had the
weren't.
same question.
Yeah, they weren't on the original plan. So it's fine to have them here, but we just want to label, what they are. So maybe you can just kind of explain
Okay.
what they are with the beet
All right.
juice.
Yeah. Part of soil techs is, during the season, we recycle material and everything else. The other part of soil tech that we are into, because we had a building large enough to do it, is that we promoted anti-icing material with organics. Basically, the beet juice was added to all our products.
Do you mean,
Beets.
As in
We're the
beets?
number 2 producer of sugar beets in the world. And most of the sugar beet, which is this big, is where all our sugar comes from.
Right.
Besides, unless it says cane sugar, it comes from a sugar
I'm from
beet.
Louisiana. Sorry,
Okay.
cane sugar's what I grew up with.
All right. So what they do is that they extract the sugar from a sugar beet out in the Midwest. They get it down to maybe 15%. They're ended up with like a molasses after they get it out. 95% of it is actually sprayed on horse feed and cow feed. It's the sticky substance. If anybody ever has like sweet feed for a horse, that's what's sprayed on, is the same material. Well, they found that the beet juice, when added to any salt mixture, enhanced the salt's freezing quality. Instead of salt starting to not work at 15 degrees, by spraying this onto the salt, they were bringing it down to -10 for better. So the idea is that you would use less salt to try to get the same product. We've made it into a brine mixture of taking the salt, adding water to a 23%. We were doing that in the building, and we had storage tanks there. And we've been basically making a mixture, and we've been spraying for the town of Poughkeepsie for 8 years. If anyone noticed in the town, those black lines
Yep.
at the storm, that's actually us doing it for the town, and we've done it that long. We've sold the product at our other facility, Northside Supply, and we also treat the salt. Basically everything was coming out of there for locally, but also what it was, we were working with a company called Road Solution. They would get contracts with the Army and Navy bases on the East Coast, and basically what it is I would make the liquid, they would come in with tractor trailers would deliver it to Groton, North Fork, Mechanicsville, and really that's what we were using. And the ingredients that we were using was salt, water, the beet juice, and some mixes had magnesium chloride. So you could take the thing and make any type of mix depending on what the customer wanted. The Navy bases and all that, they just wanted the beet juice and the salt brine. Where I had other bases wanted half magnesium chloride, half beet juice. In other words, it was a
Proprietary
recipe
mixes.
material.
So are you storing what are you storing in the?
In the tanks that are above is where I would store the magnesium chloride, because I didn't want to store it inside the building. okay? The underground tanks that we had, which were basically convex tanks that we got from the Hyde Park School District, those are concrete reinforced steel tanks, that's where the beet juice is. Beet juice is pH neutral. It doesn't rust anything. So you can almost put it in any metal tank without fear of it eating through. Not like magnesium chloride or anything else that, or calcium chloride. That's why you always see them in plastic tanks. They can't put them in metal because it will actually eat through the metal. That's really what Soil Tech kept people busy in the winter. In other words, when they couldn't work outside, we had this going in the winter, and this was our, inside the building. It was nice because you did all the mixing with the brine machine. We had a Cargill brine machine, and it kept people busy. That was the whole idea of it. And
As I like to say up here, we learn something new every day.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
cool.
ingenuity.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so if you can just note all that on there, what the underground tanks are. No, I'm not trying to.
Short version.
I'm just saying.
Cliff notes.
Cliff
Very
notes.
condensed version.
Condensed, fairly condensed.
Yeah, I
Condense it
don't
and
mean
then
to repeat everything
Zip
that
it.
you just said.
Condense it and then zip it.
Under,
But
all right.
Magnesium
that's what-
chloride above.
Okay, so that's what those are up in that
Okay.
area. So, the other thing that we had noticed is down by the retention pond, in the back. It's kind of a little, messy. Down that area, there's a lot of the, stockpiles that are out there that have, crept down the hill towards the retention basin. So as part of our comments and what we had talked about in the field, as they're putting in the storm drain pipe that Joe and Pat had talked about before, that area down in the back is going to be cleaned up. The slope will be stabilized, and erosion control would be put down at the bottom. So, and we'll outline that in our letter. So that's that. The other thing is, there is a proposed fence that goes along the front of the building and then kind of cuts across where the access is down, and then ends up down by the house that they rent. Based upon our field visit, Pat, you can talk to Joe, but I think we basically said that the fence would follow where the silt fence
Fence is now,
is there, so you'll make,
hook over.
yeah, make some modifications to
Yeah, we
that.
could add that.
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is on this plan, there's several pine trees that are shown. Some are north of where the beet juice and brine tanks are, and then there's also many shown to the south of where the Phase 1 building's going to be. I'm sure that they were planted at one time, but I don't think that many of them made it. So there's not the screening there. So it's just something that we'll have to work through, and I don't remember the code if it absolutely requires it. I kind of think it does because
Is it residential to the?
it butts up
Yes,
to
it's
our
Yeah.
residential
It's
zone.
residential property,
Yep.
or residentially zoned property.
So yes, it
So
does.
just for our newer members on the board, when this was approved back in, I think, 2015, Ms. Gleason mentioned, some stormwater detention ponds, et cetera, this was not all completed. There are a variety of reasons. It's connecting, a pipe connecting over here. It's going to be corrected now. So there was no CO given. Site plan, even though the conditions were met, they never met CO, or most of the conditions because of some screening and this area. That will be cleaned up this time along the way. Anything else?
Not for me. Liz, I don't know if you have
Ms.
anything.
Axelson?
Just quickly, what I'm going to do is take a look at the 2012 approved plan, compare it with this one, and just come up with some, probably requests for clarification, some revisions to kind of reinstate certain things. There was an area of clearing, there was a note in the, I think it was the northeastern corner, and there was some note there about clearing what's there now. There seems to be a buffer around it and a berm, and so we'll want more details on that. And then the other idea was to kind of look around the perimeter of the site and maybe just make some comments about places where there could be some filling in, a little bit of buffering around the edge. There's a lot of vegetation around the edge, but those are the main things. It'll be a comparison and laundry list.
Thank you. Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
Yeah, just further to Liz's comment about the non-disturbance, there was actually a whole area of the site plan that had a note not to be disturbed. It was supposed to be left in its natural state. And as I mentioned earlier, there's only 1 or 2 trees there now that will have to be cleared. So that area has to be treated by the board as if it were in its natural state now. So when you do your seeker review, you're reviewing it as if
As
they
though
are
nothing had been
proposing
done.
to denude and regrade that area, because it wasn't part of the prior approval. The prior approval specifically said, do not touch this area. So,
That's this area right
Do we
here.
know which area?
yeah, if you,
Okay, thank you.
so I just keep in mind when we're doing our seeker review, all these little things from before we're wrapping it all into this current seeker review.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll add that in our meetings with Ms. Moss, who can be pretty fierce if things aren't followed to the plan, she actually wasn't too upset by this. I was in shock. She usually makes sounds and grimaces, but I think she thinks the site's run well enough that this just didn't bother her. But I am going to bring up one of her comments before I call on the rest of the board for theirs.
Well, it also may play into the amount of disturbance, because you can't just count the .7 on the Baxter lot, you have to count this area.
Of course it's going to.
As well, so you're probably going to be over an acre of disturbance.
And that it relates to rather the SWIP versus the erosion sediment control permit.
Yes.
Ms. Moss would like the board to consider that there are existing green spaces still, and she'd like to consider having us lead her in through here and in through here, and through there. She'd like to have us consider maybe having a post and rail fence surrounding the green space so that it really does stay intact, rather than just a note on a plan. That's for the board to consider. Otherwise, all of her issues, I think, have been dealt with in the offline meetings. So let me start to my left. Ms. Weiser, any
I have
comments?
no questions.
Mr. Pickett?
No comment.
Ms. Wasser?
Well, I had the benefit of doing a site walk the other day, so it was very helpful when I finally found you, because I was late.
It's not a small site.
Hanging over the back edge there. I just wanted to reiterate a few things that might have been a little more specific that I didn't think I heard today, which is the screening where the French drain is in the front by the septic system. We talked about the new building will be massive, and, I mean, it's same, but
It's big.
pretty big. And not to try to screen it from the road with big trees, but to just try to create some kind of substantial planting at that V,
Yes.
just to break up the visual break of the building.
Do you want to point to where the V is, if you can?
If I can, yeah.
Kind of hard to see on there.
I
Why
see
is
it
it
now.
not coming on?
Joe, can you
That should be
just point to the area where the septic system is, just like in
Where's-
front of
Oh,
it?
it comes from the bottom?
Well, right where
Right.
the driveway.
Yeah, where the
Yes.
sign is.
Aim,
Right where the
aim here
sign is.
first.
Where it
Oh.
splits.
Now you can take it over. There you go.
Okay. So,
Should be down, yep.
no, it's down here.
There you go,
Yeah.
yep.
Right in front of the septic. So we don't want to disturb over the septic. But what happens is, so when you come here and you glance up and you see the dimension of the building, which has real height, it just sort of breaks the first, the bottom half of the building. So rather than invest money down here with big trees hiding something that is
Unhideable.
unhideable.
It's like parking the Titanic up on the.
Exactly. I did have a comment also, I know it's a little early on, but you submitted the colors, we talked about the colors. You actually made a comment earlier that it used to be beige and it disappeared. Nobody could see it at first. The colors you submitted are different. The actual sketch looks pink. And
I
you
tried
also
to
have an
pick that
existing building
slurry-
that's tan.
I tried to pick the one that's marked, and I just,
But
with the
because of
slurry-
its, no, I understand that, but because of its size and it's part of the approval, we need to have a better understanding of what the actual color's going to be instead of pink.
that's the small one. The small one. you're
That's the
talking
small
about.
building?
This is the small building
They
that
they
they're
I
don't
doing.
have
didn't re-
anything for the new.
We don't have anything
So
on
they're
the
not
big
going to
building.
match. They're not going to be consistent in color.
They haven't
We
designed it
haven't
yet.
gotten
Yeah.
that far to even think about
Okay,
it, to be
well,
honest
I
with
would
you.
just,
Yeah.
encourage you to look at the
Because really, where
colors.
where the small one is, I don't think anyone will really, to be honest with you, in that
Mm-hmm.
corner, I don't think anyone from the road will not be able to see that building because of the office being directly in the way. That one's more hidden, more than anything else.
And then, were you going to say something, Victoria?
I was gonna ask, so what's your suggestion as to which colors you think would disappear better?
Well, I think the paler, more natural color will be less obtrusive.
This is entitled Surrey Beige Adobe.
Right.
That's what I,
Yeah, usually when you
usually
try to
means
print
brick,
something like that, the
pink.
print is not
Every-
close.
But it's
to-
also-
The problem is that every printer,
Adobe is,
And we usually ask for samples,
Yeah.
If you bring a
Stephanie, so.
sample,
Adobe
Yeah.
is normally a red. If
exactly.
you combine Adobe with beige, it's going to give you,
If you could actually just bring us a sample next
Okay.
time,
I can
or a
handle it.
range of several samples
I
around
was
the
trying
one
to
you
pick
want.
something that would be close to
No, I
what was
appreciate it. We're
there.
not trying to give you a hard time, but when I look at that, and then to think about the consistency of the buildings, I mean, whether you see it or not, like,
Right.
just do it once. The color part, you don't have to get approval. So my only other comment was, when we were walking the site, it does abut, this is a neighborhood business, and it abuts some residential boundaries, zones. And I think, Pete left, but we had a conversation at the time that I think the code says that if you're abutting, then if the neighborhood business is abutting the residential, there will have to be some kind of screening.
Right.
So that'll have to be refined, shown.
Somehow. Our problem is really on the west side of trying to, we're 35 feet above the other ground.
Right.
There's not much I can
Right.
screen. You're
Well, I'm
looking up
just
like this.
sharing Tad's comment
I know.
that I didn't hear mentioned yet today, so.
The difficulty on that side is that the soil tech recycling is on that side.
Mhm.
And it's really difficult to promote anything. That's why, like, coming up the embankment is basically a riprap, because, there's no lawn there. It's, you go from one to the other. And I can try planting trees, but it's not the place that really promotes tree growth. It's not like on the other side where you're in woods both ways. There, I can get trees to grow. But on that side, I think it's because of this. I don't know what exactly to.
Well, you have a consultant, we'll figure it out. I'm sure we'll get to a conclusion.
screening can be vegetative or accomplished by fence. When you're talking about huge heights, if it's the fences along the property line, it can only be 6 feet tall. That's not going to screen out much other than,
That's what I'm.
like your ankles.
I'm going from this to this. I really don't know what.
But I'll just point out, we've encountered this issue before, actually with a property that Mr. Berger represented. It's the Baxter property that was the medical, supposed to be the medical thing. There's a point where, because of the ravine that goes through, that there's no screening possible other than existing natural vegetative border, so he left that intact. Those trees happen to be trees that lose their leaves, so during the winter, they can't really screen. But screening is supposed to be up to the planning board to determine the degree of opacity that's possible, and also what's practical in terms of money. I'm not going to have you erect a 40-foot fence to screen something. I mean, I think
And I
that-
wasn't implying that.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, when we look through
Yeah.
these, the board will work with you. It's up to you to propose something that you think might
Right.
work. And screening can also be accomplished through use of natural colors, putting something closer to the building. There's other ways to look at this.
And my last small comment, I think, really, even though we don't need to screen it from the very front with big trees, you do have 4 very tall, dead evergreens, and I think it would look, it's a good time when you're doing the work to take those down.
It's on the list, but
It's going to hit your tenant's house.
It's far down the list with everything
It's not a
else going
priority.
on.
I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time the other day also and
No
for the
problem.
walkthrough.
Ms. Dexter, comments?
Just that I was really saddened when I saw the news about the fire, because I do know how much work you have put in on that site and how you did grow a really awesome business back there. So I'm glad to see you're picking up, moving forward. Just a couple of questions. Will they need do we care about the fact that they're going to use somebody else's property? How does that enter into our?
So I think Liz and Pete were going to comment on it. We may need the full outline of that other property. Technically, Mr. Baxter has authorized them to submit an application for that property, so that's okay. I mean, we've had properties before with one applicant and one owner, so that's okay. It is temporary, though, so one of the things that we're going to talk about is conditioning issuance of a CO for the big building on restoration of that area.
Okay,
So they do plan on stopping the use of it once the building is
so
up.
we don't need things like a cross-access agreement or anything, because it's temporary.
I don't think it's going to rise to the level of an agreement as long as we can link it to the CO and they stop using it. If they were going to use it for a longer period of time, then we're going to
Okay,
talk about it.
okay,
Because that cross-access easement would have to be tied to a certain date to end, and they don't know what the date's going to be.
right, yeah, so I just wanted to know,
Basically, on that site, I mean, I know you haven't been to our site, but what we're looking at the space for is a lot of the tools of our trade,
a place to put it.
trench boxes.
Get it
They're
out of the way.
20 feet long, 10 feet
Yeah.
high.
Yeah,
They just take up, a lot of this stuff takes up a
Yeah.
lot of room. Even just, I have over 50 buckets, digging buckets for all the machines.
wow.
Because every machine, you have to have different sizes. Well, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, no, I
this property for,
I understand the
because
use.
it just takes up a lot of room that we feel we're gonna need,
You're going to.
You're going to have to maneuver around the site.
yeah,
and-
to take
yeah.
the building down and the steel, and even
Yeah.
when they go to erect the new one, you've gotta have all this space, just as they bring it in, to put it somewhere.
Yep.
So we're looking to try to move the things that we own, that is basically steel,
No, I
this
understand.
and that.
And it's a
So-
good idea. I
And
mean,
it's stuff that we don't really go after on a daily basis. In other words, even on a trench box or a bucket. It's usually for a certain project, and it's not in and out every day.
yes, no, I understand the whole use. I actually think it's great and nice to have a good neighbor
Yeah.
who's willing to work with you.
It's a very impressive business.
So then the only other thing I guess I'm thinking of is, if you put in the drainage now, is that, normally that it all goes in together, right? And so you're going to be putting in drainage, so you may actually have to, you might have to tweak that when you go to the big building. So when you go to phase, you may need to add that in, or?
Well, we know what we need to do with the drainage. We need to put it in phase one because it's wet back there.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't, no, my point is, we know that you need it because you have no drainage right
Yeah.
now because of the building.
Yes.
Was handling that. But you're going to put it in, and then you're gonna need to, do the next phase to build something. Just knowing how, construction is and everything, will that need to move?
I don't believe so because we're staying in the same
You're
footprint.
designing this for like
We're
the
going all the
end,
way
the
around.
end
Yeah,
of
we know the
the,
footprint the building's going to be.
Okay.
So the only thing we don't know about what the building is what the facade coloring will look like. But it's going to stay in the same footprint.
okay,
So
good,
the
all right.
variable that we need for phase three now will be what the building will look like.
Yep.
And
Okay,
what it's being made of, and that's going to come to you in a phase three, but it's not going to change in the footprint.
And with the new building at this point is, we don't know where the gutters are going to be on the new one, but if we get the main trunk line in, because like I said, we're flooding in the back. That's what we really like to do, is get that in, stop the flooding,
Yep.
and then in that one section where we never really contoured it, then we can get that done
Okay.
now too. And get all that whole end done at this
Okay.
point, and then work on our drainage and keep working around the building
right.
and get that in, because honestly, we need that. The fuel tanks and that are a day-to-day issue, and that's really what we're facing at this
If I
point.
understand this correctly, you're going to install the new stormwater drainage management system. Then, once the building is decided, you're working on it, it's up, you're going up, then you'll take leaders and modify anything you need to connect into that system.
Yeah, there'd be a header pipe that would be separate from the
Okay.
trunk line.
Yes.
We're building the
Okay.
trunk line, we'll be putting in a separate header pipe that goes to the building, but that doesn't go in phase 1.
You're designing it for when the big building is there.
Yes, so we're putting in just the trunk line, which won't
Some of it, we
change.
need it.
Right
like
now,
for
yes.
the site.
Yes.
Well, also,
So we
Ms.
don't-
Moss, as a stormwater management officer, would like to see this installed as
Absolutely,
well.
yeah.
For various reasons.
Correct.
Okay,
And to be honest with you, I'm in that business. So for me to do it isn't a big issue. I'm
Right.
just looking at trying to phase it with the weather
yeah,
and my own schedule of working. And if I have scheduled time to do it, I'd like to at least make an attempt to start it to get going. I'm not
Understood.
saying that once I start it, if another job pops right up, you might go so far with the brand new one, jump to a job and go so, you know what I mean? But for us, it is somewhat a priority so that we
Right.
can get out of that one section and finish that and be done with it.
well, I'm confident that we can, that we'll be able to put together a phasing system that will allow you to move forward.
Right.
Thank you, Ann. To answer one more part of your question, with the Baxter property being part of this proposal, they're going to need, for calculations for the SWIP or the erosion sediment control, the Baxter property will have to be included in the overall area of disturbance. That's a known. And again, we're treating the area that's already been disturbed as though it wasn't disturbed
Okay,
as we go through.
understood.
So that looks like it'll be a SWIP, in other words. But
Most likely.
You would need to include both. That's another thing for us to review.
Okay.
So my comments would be, in the special use permit, you talked that there'll be a 16% increase over the base. Can you give us some details as to how the 16% increase was calculated? Because it's a little blurry to me how big that staging area that was supposed to stay green that's now there. You don't have to answer that tonight if you want to put that into a memo, but, okay. Thank you.
We'll get a memo to you on our,
Okay, thank
and
you.
then over to you.
I agree with my colleague, Ms. Wasser. I think you need to add some trees around, if nothing else, just to compensate for the trees that were removed from that staging area.
Understood.
But also just to kind of help mitigate the bulk of the building. And again, I don't think a lot of people look at it, but now whenever I go by there on my way to Corn Crib, I do stop and stare because I've
Yeah.
gotten used to it.
Yes.
The EAF, the environmental assessment form, needs correcting. I don't remember the section now, but you have this question, the question about it being phases, you say no, but then you talk about the phases, so that should
No.
be corrected too. Yes, there are phases
Yes.
required. There's language about further exploring the on-site wastewater treatment system. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, we're going to verify that it is working for the new building once the new building is.
And that's all they're talking about. You're not talking about, if you have to expand it, that would be under the
No.
Department of Health or whatever.
Yeah, we don't feel it needs
Will
to
you
be.
certify it for the board?
We will be certifying.
Thank you. That's
Basically,
where I was going.
basically, a better way to describe this is based on construction going on in Phase 1 and Phase 2 now. And before Phase 3 gets building, we'll be inspecting it and certifying to not only the board and the health department that it's in good condition and properly working for the proposal in Phase 3. It's not we're not anticipating any expansion because the building's been there. But with the fire and in proposed construction that's going to go on in Phase 1 and 2, we don't want that damaged, so the time to inspect it would be after Phase 2, before Phase 3.
I think Michelle actually explained that to me in an offline meeting, but I forgot. My apologies. Because, like I said, the language was just, I wasn't sure where you were going
Yeah,
with
it's
it.
clear to us, but we need to, we'll choose some more appropriate wordage.
Then, I think, are we going to get review comments from you?
Yes.
Based on that, if we.
Next few days.
We need another submission possibly. But I'm curious as to, once we get a new submission based on revisions from the comments and comments they've heard tonight, we can certainly start circulating, but to go to DC planning, they normally want to see elevations. I'm not sure how we would circulate this.
We do need
Without-
something.
Well, can't we just, what did they submit?
These don't count?
This is the new building.
They didn't give us
Oh,
any
the
for the
new
big
building.
This is just the new building. In other words, they need DC
You need
planning.
like a spec sheet or something. that
But
we-
we're gonna, so let's think about this. So aren't we telling them that they're gonna come back for the big, no?
That's, I'm looking at Victoria, unless they were coming back for a separate phase approval, if they want to get all
Right,
these
if we're
phases
doing it all
approved
as
now,
one approval, we need it now.
then I need to go ahead and have something.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
Something that looks like the exist,
Can I
I'm
just
leading the
make-
witness again.
Can I
We
make a,
just, so we need to be able to give the county, to give them an idea of what the building's gonna look like. So you need to give us the
Yeah.
spec
big one,
sheet or
yes, the large
something with the
building.
color.
Just give us a spec sheet of a metal building.
It can look
There
like
you
exactly
go.
what's there right now.
Right.
We could do that,
And
In other
the
words,
color.
we know you're gonna come
Take a
back with
picture of
probably
it.
something different. once you
but we could do that for now.
Really know
Yeah,
what
I
you're
can,
doing.
I can get a spec of the building.
I understand, we got that
Probably
you
covered.
know what I'm talking about.
We have it covered.
And we can talk to the county, too.
Patrick, DC planning requires an application to be complete. One of the things they look at is, does it have this, this, and this? If it doesn't have it, then it gets kicked back to us, and they have another 30 days after we get them the new plans to review.
Yeah.
So trying to keep your timelines in control, if we have an elevation, it
Understood.
doesn't have to, we're not going to nail your feet to the ground and say, this is it, it's going to be this forever.
Well, part of
It's
my
something that's
confusion,
reasonably,
You call it elevation.
I'm sorry, that's
And
right, that's a
I'm
different
thinking-
term for you.
You know, you say we need elevation.
No.
Elevation to me is up and down.
It's
Elevation.
architectural
We
elevation.
had
Remember we had this
this discussion
discussion.
before.
It should include a height detail, though.
Yes,
You
we
know
understand
what
that.
height's gonna be.
We'll work with
You mean
the
rendering.
applicant.
There you go.
Ah, there we
There you go.
I got
Render.
kind of confused last time on the last meeting, was you kept saying elevation. and I
Mr.
just
Liscombe,
kept
you're going to have to
confused.
resolve this for us, being the architect in the room. No, so you know what we're talking about. That
Yes,
way,
we
again,
understand.
If it just basically replicates the footprint and
Yes.
the look,
Mhm.
then I think we can start circulating to DC planning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Um,
got that covered.
I don't remember seeing a photometric plan in there, but you're not changing anything that I know of.
They added,
Is there one?
We could get one.
The corner.
We could get a photometric plan.
we got a couple wall mounts on the,
Yeah.
New building.
We could develop
new
one without a
building.
problem.
but facing into the site?
Right.
That's not going to be a
It's
problem.
gonna- And it's going to go to 0 at the property line.
And then there was,
Nothing
there was gonna be two motion
Right.
sensor lights up by the fuel
And they've
tank.
shown them, they've submitted those as well.
We'll have that on the, and we'll add that to the package.
I haven't been to the site. Can you just clarify where your employees park?
Down by the main building.
Well, yeah,
Here's the
Basically,
main,
if
that's
you
the
go up the
office, they park
driveway-
right where the office is.
yeah.
So-
On each side.
You can fit 35
now.
cars there?
Believe me, we get cars there. Some of the employees have company vehicles.
Yeah, so they're not
So they're
parking.
not, they're there, but they're not parking. They have their own company vehicle that basically they come in the morning, but then they take the vehicle to go to the job site. So it does phase out.
And they're not
We
coming
have-
in all at the same
and
time.
Like I say, part of that you have to remember too is that I've got 5 to 6 people working in the office at the other parking lot. You know, the building down below. There's
So,
parking there also.
One of the reasons I'm asking is because your scale calculation is areas of use plus parking. And so I was
Yes.
trying to figure out.
That's why I asked
where your
Michelle to show how she
parking was
calculated it.
Well-
exactly.
And it does-
So if
it
you
does
could maybe
fluctuate.
hatch it in or something, so when we check the calculations.
We could do that.
Actually, I'll clarify that what Tad wanted was basically the open area
A
to
footprint.
be parking space, which would include drives. Not to do this in a traditional parking space, not counting drives. Tad, back in the original one, said, just take whatever's,
Square feet.
hard gravel or whatever, and.
So you
that's all
counted
scale.
everything towards the use.
Because there's not defined parking
Right,
spaces,
okay.
it's a little higgledy-piggledy.
Hold on.
And there's a very specific, there was a table that was on the
Yeah, no, I saw
2012.
the table.
Well, we'll clarify
I was
it and how we discussed it with Tad and provide it.
Our employees, in the wintertime, obviously, we drop down. But some employees, what we do on some of our projects, they don't come to the office, they'll go directly to the job site. So it does fluctuate in that regard. Is I can't, besides the people who work in the office, I can't tell you an exact number on this date to this date because it does fluctuate depending on the work.
Mix of
It
uses.
would be max though,
Does it-
right?
So what,
Yeah, Max, I was just
So
trying
you're
to
asking
understand
for,
where-
you're asking for a
go.
firm designation of maximum space.
Or just, right, identify where the employee spaces are,
Yeah.
because, I could see a lot of places here.
they're utilized that way too, a lot of places.
We can provide that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a couple points of clarification. When we looked at this wasn't, this is an existing site, well-established use, and we're really looking at the 2012 plan approval. So, to be honest, for example, when I saw a couple of wall-mounted lights pointing into the site on the new building, I wasn't going to ask for a photometric plan.
It's really more just to show foot candles by where the two sensor-activated lights are. I believe it's supposed to be 100 watt, if I recall correctly.
It's not a big deal to provide, so we
Yeah,
can do
it's just a
that.
way to, remember, because lumens have the.
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
It's just adding catalog cuts, and the foot
It's-
candles, have to be 0 at the property edge. I think they're going to be
We're not gonna have a
aiming
problem.
toward this way anyway.
We're not gonna have an issue with it going off-site, and it's not a big, it's
Just a
not,
matter
a-
of
it's
dotting
not a big
i's,
deal.
crossing t's.
Yeah, and then, as we're looking at this, some of our comments will have to do with notation just to get clear on what we want to end up with, especially on the Baxter portion of the site. Just a suggestion in terms of working through phasing plan and the logistics of that. I know that it can be a pain to put intensive notation on a plan and then have to revise it. And one suggestion would be to draft something up as narrative for your phasing and submit it and let us go over it and work through it a little bit. And then at a later point, it would end up on the plans. That might make things a little easier and more consultative. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, and remember, this is all just designed to make sure that it's easy on you guys, that there's not any holdup
Understood.
for a CO or anything. So I know you took copious notes, I watched, so I'm not going to go over everything. But Patrick, Mr. Gleason, I want to thank you for describing all of what goes on there, because there is a lot. And thanks to our colleague, Ms. Wasser, as well as to our two consultants, or the Tad and Pete, for walking the site and giving us some eyes-on-the-ground information.
Does the rest of the board want
Yeah,
to
does
say
anybody
more?
else want to? I mean, I'm sure the
Oh,
Gleasons
yeah.
are more than happy to have an, we went
yeah.
We went because I just wanted to make sure that I saw it before we came to the meeting tonight, so that so we could talk, so.
Hopefully you'll have better weather. Less,
Should I
Well,
contact?
well, if Mr. Gleason is there, there will be better weather, right? Because you bring the
'Cause you
good
bring
weather.
he was there, he was there.
Would you like me to contact one of you two or Mr. Gleason?
However you want.
Okay.
I'm in the office every day, so.
It's very helpful.
Do we have his email? Mr. Gleason's email?
You can contact us, it's easier to talk about.
Okay.
Whichever's easier for you to contact,
Yeah.
we can arrange.
So I'll shoot some, do you guys want to try for weekends, I take it?
Well, we can also do it after work,
Work.
because it's lighter now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still light, it's almost
Let me
7:30.
take a look at the 7-day forecast and see if I can find a dry day and through here to actually walk the site.
Yeah. For
And I'll-
me, my only difficulty is on what night, which child is going to what sport.
Oh,
event
okay,
This.
okay.
So that's why I kind of need just a little bit of advance.
Oh.
Oh, no, don't, you,
And you tell us what works, yeah.
I'm just saying, one goes here, one goes there, and
You become a taxi.
well, your brother or your sister can also be there if they're more available, just to make it easier.
Or Joe or Michelle.
Yeah.
We could
So we'll
also-
work that out.
we'll
I'll
get
get you
we'll
some-
get covered.
I'll send you some dates, and I'll try to look at something that after work as
We'll make
well.
this work.
yeah.
Well, I visited the site illegally, remember?
Yeah. You have permission, so it's never
Actually,
illegal.
after work, because as you saw when you were there, there's a lot going
There
on
was a
During the
lot
day.
going on.
during the day.
Yeah.
And, with
Lot of
trucks
big
coming
equipment.
in.
It's an impressive
and
It's
site.
everything else. I
impressive.
mean, we've been recycling, basically the Dutchess County Jail.
Oh, okay.
All
Oh, yeah.
they're demoing the
about
old
30 feet
jail.
high.
We're recycling the whole old jail,
Wow.
Yeah.
and
That'll keep you
basically
busy.
we're hoping, he told us, because we hire out the crushing, he's telling us the first or second week of June, he's finally coming in, so that where we were walking around, the one spot that's empty is all that fills that.
Oh, geez.
That's why I said on that one side, it's kind of tough, because it's always,
There's something always going on.
it's up and down on that type of issue.
And it's heavy stuff. It's,
Yeah, and we basically go with, because we don't crush it, we hire it. And so you're kind of, and there's only so many people who do it. So you're kind of always at their whim of schedule of when they will show up to make this pile go down and make that pile go up.
So thank you. I think I can speak on behalf of the board to say we look forward to processing this review. I'm sorry that it happened. I'm sorry you're
Yeah.
back here before us. No, I am. I mean, I'm sure it's an
Nobody
immense
got
loss.
that's good.
Yeah, I know,
That's
that
all
was
that
my
counts.
first question, was there any life loss, and there wasn't,
No.
so.
None of
that's
the firemen got hurt or anything else, so. It is what it is.
And you had cameras operating so that the inspectors can see some of this.
Yeah. We haven't seen it. I think I have to foil the police department
Oh,
to
jeez.
try to get a copy of it.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
But we did talk to multiple firemen that we know, and they, a lot of it, I think what it was is that a lot of the firemen weren't used to something that big.
Big, yeah.
And not knowing what the building was, and I understand, it's like, well, listen, we don't know if this thing's gonna go boom. And
Right.
like I said, it's not like you're walking into a building 10 feet and that's it. You're walking in over 100 feet. And if something goes wrong, you're not
It's a long
gonna
way
make
out.
the out. So to me, it was better they stayed out and let it do what it was gonna do. So that's what it is.
Wow.
So we're not going to put you on for a specific date. Once we get the comments out and you make revisions and you just submit, just give us a buzz, let us know when you're going to submit, and we'll get you on the agenda.
Understood.
And if you have any questions, in the interim, always available for offline meetings or phone call discussions.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for letting us do this instead.
Yeah.
Mr. Waters, I forgot to tell you, we meet at 6 now instead of 7, sorry. I told him, maybe about 30 minutes into the meeting, you'll be able to come in, and
He did.
yes, he
pretty
did,
much.
perfectly. The next item on the agenda is Hudson Valley Hospice. Mr. Oliver is recused from this review, and we've appointed Rob Waters as the alternate throughout the life of this application. Applicants are seeking approval for site plan as well as special use permit because they're going to expand beyond the existing square footage and parking stalls. This is a neighborhood business district, which normally allows a scale of 7,500. They're already excellently beyond that, so they're looking for us for the special use permit to allow 50% expansion off their base. We had a site walk that we had comments on, and we put this on for workshops so we can keep this going. In the interim, we've decided we should probably circulate all 4. I believe that Ms. Leibold is tendering the new submissions for the other 3 parcels. Is that what I heard? That's what I thought. It's been communicated to me that way. So,
No,
No, Joe's doing.
not
this
quite.
one. He's letting Michelle.
Don't breathe.
Michelle's keeping-
let me turn it over to you guys, and you can talk about the proposal.
Okay, I'm Michelle Zerfus with Berger Engineering.
Take it closer.
Yeah, your voice is low, sorry.
I'm Michelle Zerfus with Berger Engineering.
Chuck Liscombe, McCormick, Van Voorhis.
Mike Kaminsky, President CEO of Hudson Valley Hospice.
Do you want to take the lead, Michelle?
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this one. What's being proposed is an addition to the existing administrative offices for the Hudson Valley Hospice. This is just an office building. There's no medical things that go on inside the building. They also want to expand the parking lot, because presently the parking lot is always filled, and they've been parking over in the Page parking lot, but even that is just about at capacity. So that's why they want to have some extra spaces for themselves. As you know, that this is a part of a bigger subdivision, so all we're doing is focusing on the site plan.
Correct.
The overall scale is not really a focus of this particular, at this point, because the scale is being developed with the site plan. And then so the scale in these plans may be revised.
Can you repeat that?
The scale is a part of there's scale in these plans, but the subdivision, I've got to see like the housing dwelling units and things like that.
Right.
That come out of the,
So the parent parcel is not owned by your client, it's owned by the Pages, and they'll be the ones to assign dwelling units? Right
Yes.
now, they seem to have assigned all the dwelling units to you guys. Interesting, because I can't really see you putting housing up behind yourself.
It'll be a very tall building.
Skinny and tall, yes.
You know, it'd be like a Japanese building where you have just a little,
Yeah.
like, cubby.
Mistake,
We believe that's a mistake on their part. We believe that they want to put it on one of their parcels that extends all the way back with the high ridge line, where it'd be difficult to put housing anyway, but it is a possibility. This has been discussed before. Everyone's pretty much aware of what's being proposed along the way. The scale the one thing we haven't resolved yet is there was a percentage increase of scale for the original parent site when they extended, or when they improved the building that's Fresenius, I believe it's
Right.
dialysis.
Yep.
So, Fresenius, that's it, thank you. Dialysis. So if that was, just for example, say that their base scale was X square footage, and they got an increase of 5%, then they need to figure out how to allocate the remaining amongst all.
Right, so,
They need the biggest expansion, they need the only expansion right now.
right. So if they allocate it purely on existing square footage, then this project needs a variance from the zoning board of appeals. But if the parent parcel, let's say there's 50,000 square feet that could be built out still, if they don't give any to that insurance building up front, which probably doesn't have much room to grow anyways, instead of allocating that, some of it, they could give all the percentage over to this lot, and then they may not need a variance. So, you know,
Are making
there's,
sense to you?
Yes.
there's a total number of square, well, I'm trying to explain the board. Total number of square feet that are left to build out of the whole site. And so we're waiting on the subdivision calculations to come back to see how they've allocated that remaining building potential.
And all that this affects is that they might need a variance, an area variance.
Right now, it looks as though they need an area variance, so we'll see.
Yeah, the first step would be is to calculate the available scale. That's what we're waiting for ourselves.
Thank you.
And that, once that's done, it'll become clear to us and to the town where it's going to be allocated. The allocation will be between the page and my client to determine what they want to do. And then we'll come back to you with that. But the first step is, what is the scale?
Yeah.
And you'll also have to include the tiny vestibule
Yes,
increase.
understood.
It's not much.
Yeah, but you have to add it in. We
That
understand.
everything is.
Every little piece, we understand
Yep.
it.
Anyway, this is probably, the subdivision is probably the most complicated part of this project.
We believe it is the most
Oh, it
complicated.
is. After that, it's just, then we have 4 separate site plans that seem fairly easy to me.
Then the water and
It
sewer.
should be reassuring words to you that it sounds fairly easy to us, so just accept that. Anything else you guys want to add about what you're doing?
Well, yeah, and the reason we're here tonight is because we'd like to get some of your input on the site plan features, so that as the subdivision's worked out, we've worked out some of the different
And you're going to hear that.
features.
You're going to hear that. There's a reason why Mr. Liscombe is here. I gave him a
Yes.
heads up, although very limited. I'm surprised you made it here, Chuck. That was very nice of you. Thanks. Oh, good. I was thinking there might be a hot meal waiting for you at home that's not going to be cold. There you go. So let me start with the consultants. Ms. Axelson, any comments?
Well, let me just touch first on that issue of the dwelling units. What happened is in the Taconic subdivision and site plan set, on one sheet, they had attributed the 78 dwelling units for the entire site to Lot 2, which is the Anderson School site. Anyway, that was what we had understood, and when they transposed the tables, they must have, they just didn't add a column in. So my understanding is that those 78 dwelling units are supposed to be attributed to Lot 2, not to Lot 1. So it was mistakenly shown on another plan sheet to be attributed to Lot 1, which surprised me, because that wasn't what I had understood. So let me just go back to the beginning here. So we'll need some clarification on, the building footprint is listed as 15,419 square feet in one place and a different square footage in another place. So we'll need some clarifications on that, the parking calculations, and again, the scale calculations will be dependent on the subdivision. So we'll do our best to review this site plan kind of with that sort of ongoing disclaimer until we see the subdivision plan. We noticed that there was a pillar on the corner of a building, and so we're going to ask you to provide pedestrian ADA accessible access via sidewalk and curb ramp to kind of get around that. It just happens to be the way it's, the sidewalk
The
and the
sidewalk
corner of the
is
building and the
shown-
pillar are positioned.
Where there's now a parking area here shown, this is now striped for, we don't know why, maybe fire access, but that doesn't seem to make sense. So you're proposing adding parking there, so you don't have to expand so much parking there. There's a sidewalk here that if you got out and tried to use it, there's no way to cross the pillar right here. There's maybe 8 inches? I mean, a little skinny, teeny thing could cross through, but it wouldn't be ADA compliant. So we're just, if you're going to show an ADA space here, I believe, you need to show a drop curb somewhere so people could get access to the sidewalk. That's all. Is that a right way to describe that?
Yeah.
It's the west side, I think. I mean, the south side.
Yeah, when we visited the site, it was very obvious that you couldn't, right. It more or less dead ends into a column.
Do you want me to point it out? Oh, she's got it. We'll try to be very descriptive. I saw that you gave some photometrics for the wall mounts that are going to be on the building expansion, and we really should have photometrics for all the fixtures, so I know that a lot of them are existing to remain. Let's see. We didn't find any notation about it, deed restrictions, covenants, or that there are none. I know at some point you'll need to show cross-access easements once we have the subdivision information, yep. Let's see, I think, well, I'll let you deal with that one. And then we saw that there's a fence on top of a retaining wall, and there was a detail that wasn't clear. And then we had a couple comments on the landscaping plan. I note that one thing that was pointed out was green giant arborvitae are too tall, perhaps, and maybe you want to find a shorter kind
There'll
of
be
tree.
some changes. Those are going to be taken off.
Right. Okay.
And.
Yeah, those go to 40 feet.
Right. Those are, the landscaper missing where the overhead wires were. And then also, it showed on the landscape plan you have that there was a tree where the existing walk is from Anderson School, and there's not going to be a tree there.
Okay, so,
Expect revised landscaping plans.
okay, so we'll make comments and we'll,
But what we wanted was just like a general species and how it looks in front of the building, what the planning board comments are on that. You know, the proposed types of trees that they're proposing, just a general, what does the planning board think? Do they like it? Do they not like it?
So
I
should
think
we
They're
hold-
trained up here also, don't worry, to respond to things like that.
should we hold off on, if you have a new landscaping plan? Does the board want us to hold off on
Well,
it?
you know, the trees will be, for the most part, like the pear tree and things like that, and the Japanese maples that it shows on here. The only thing is there won't be the arborvitae,
Okay.
and there won't be
You know,
the
we'll
the
just
tree in
make,
the sidewalk.
I'd go ahead and
we'll make the
incorporate them.
comments based on what we see, and then you can do the revisions, and those are the main things. We'll look at the drainage report in a separate memo, and those are the main ones I have.
My turn?
Yes.
Most of my comments were taken care of. We had given them some comments when we had an offline meeting about changing the parking area to the,
Right.
the east. They added a sidewalk in front of the stormwater pond, continued the fence all the way around the retaining wall. And so the only thing left that I have to do is just take a look at their drainage report. But as far as, the engineering comments, their office is taking care of those. But I'll just look at the drainage report.
Thank you. A note for Victoria, a question. Normally, we see deed restrictions, easements, we see some reference to them on plans. If those are conditions of subdivision and they're not done, how would we just ask for sort of what I would call maybe an as-built?
I think by the end of this, we'll know where they're going to be located, and they will be able to be shown on the plans.
Okay, good.
We're just not there yet.
Okay.
We anticipated, once the subdivision got to the point where we got that information,
Then you
we
can
would
go ahead
add
and show
it.
everything.
We would add it, but since we're not involved in that, we don't know it. But once it comes to us,
Yeah, the
we'll
subdivision
get
is
it.
driving all this.
Yes, so but we anticipate that once it gets to the point of a final approval on the subdivision, that data will become available to
Okay.
us.
Well, let's hope it's not the final approval. Let's hope it's somewhere even earlier along the way.
By final, we
I
should
know
know.
Mr. Kaminsky's under time pressure for this
Yes.
from the state.
Yes.
Ms. Pollard, do you have any comments?
You know, we've already touched on the fact that there are several legal issues that need to be resolved, but most of them involve the subdivision, and we haven't had a new submission yet, so. They're to
Thank you.
be determined.
At our agenda meeting, Mr. Waters, then everybody could be there, but Mr. Waters had some ideas as to architecture, so I'm going to start with him.
Yes, hi. At the last meeting, one of the comments that was raised was that the new addition is matching the pre-existing structure. And there were some elements of the existing structure that are in question, I guess. So my take on it was to try to bring the building up instead of trying to match what was done in the past. So just with little architectural details, possibly. One of the board members here mentioned that the windows in the back were it was just a very long plane of windows but there were very few. There weren't many, and it didn't. I think they're 4x4s. I'm not sure by scale.
In the back of the building?
In the back, and on the south elevation. Okay. So, but the
Those are
length.
bathrooms.
Those are bathrooms in there?
They're mainly bathrooms and a mechanical space. Where the window wall is the lunchroom.
Where the window. That's on the new structure, or?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's on the new structure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and the new structure. Okay, we were talking about the old structure, if there was something that could be done, since that's being a garden now. I believe that good garden is wrapping around.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
You know, it would be nice to have more visibility to that. And then I was saying, okay, if you can't change those openings, the window openings, and change the sizes, and that would be possibly a major remodeling, to possibly do an element over the top of those, like a solar shade or something like that would be an architectural embellishment on those that might add interest in the garden too. It was just, a thought. The trees that are there, I believe, are pines, and they're really, they're 100-foot pines, I think, or they're very tall, and the undergrowth is all gone, so they're really not screening it much. And you could see the road from that, from the back of that building. So we were thinking that, without seeing a planting or, how that garden is going to lay out and where that is, I just thought that there might be a way to do some kind of a solar shade or something.
Well, there's a really nice bereavement garden there now. I guess you've seen
Yeah,
that.
yes.
Yes.
And the idea, which is fairly recent to me, it didn't start out as part of the program, was to extend that garden to the back. And frankly, we've left that up to the landscape architect. Perhaps they could do a green wall there. They could do something, but hasn't been part of the project to
Yeah,
date.
I could show.
I'm kind of waiting for that landscape architect that Hoppus is going to work with to formalize that garden. I mean, there may be fountains. I know they have them in their current garden. But the existing portion of the building, the only place we've touched is we made a vestibule around that side, but the balance of it, we're not. It's on the building, to pass it around, we explored several things in terms of the addition. I'm talking about the front, the north side.
I understand, yeah.
We explored several different facades and formulations for that. And it came back to, our client preferred to continue the existing facade and make it look as one building. I would be open to changes, but
I was going to say, if Mr.
I would
Waters
also
can
like
show
to say
you.
that the drawings have been done.
No, he can
for a
show you,
year.
he can show you something, well, we haven't seen them,
Fine.
we haven't seen them, but
I understand
Mr.
that.
Waters can show you what he's referring to on the back side, with, where the windows are.
Well, I'll do the PLT.
Yeah, because
Define
especially if
them
people are going to
better.
be
Those
hanging out back
windows,
there
This is
now.
where the garden is here, comes around, right here, in this space, comes around the back, right? I'm just talking about some kind of a detail, because now with the addition, the walls line up, and it's a larger span than 100 feet of continuous wall, and I
We
believe
have a
that's.
rule in Hyde Park, you can't have more than a
100
100-foot
feet.
span.
I sent them the section of code, but I can find it
So-
here too.
So I was thinking of maybe this architectural element here, at the entry in the garden here, is on over here,
Just give me all that stuff.
right at that, that's a door.
That's a door to the mechanical room.
Yeah, okay, so, I don't have the interior layout, floor plan, so I don't know what those rooms are. I don't know what's happening here, if these are cubicles, I have no idea. So, my thought was.
Those are occupied spaces.
Occupied spaces, okay. So, in doing that, this now, that's 92 feet from here to there. So you could see, this is much more than the 100, so we need some kind of an element. These might be that element.
That would
And that
be-
would help.
I'll discuss it with my client.
You accept that as the element?
Yes, so let me
I believe
read the code. Large building design where the building has a facade longer than 100 feet shall present the appearance of a grouping of two or small, well-proportioned buildings, incorporating L's, wings, verandas, porticos, courtyards, and similar elements as unifying features. The board has allowed certain kinds of elements to existing buildings we're just expanding, so that you don't have to put a portico or an L or anything else. We've allowed architectural embellishments, I'll call them, where you're breaking up the mass to function this way. Because, and we would not do this if you were proposing a brand-new building that's longer than 100 feet, then you have to articulate it more. Because you're just expanding existing, Rob is looking for creative and low-cost solutions to try to give some visual emphasis. Right.
Okay.
Is it okay if I take pictures of it?
You can have it.
You can have it.
I'll
He
give
does.
it to you.
You're not going to bill us, are you?
No.
That's Mr. Liscombe who does that.
We'll take care of that.
The other thing was, with the north elevation now, I wasn't sure, there's two entries now. There's one on the east side, and there's obviously the one in the north. Which is the main entry?
This one.
This one, and it will remain that, correct?
Yes, that entry is for employees, boardroom
Can you just
meets
use
down there.
dimensions or something for the minute, so we know which one you're talking about when you say this one?
The existing main entrance.
This one.
Okay.
There's, yes, the existing main entrance. with-
This one.
With the turret above it.
Yeah, it will remain.
This.
Northwest corner of the building.
Turret slash
Then getting to that structure, that cap on that
tower, turret
roof,
tower.
I mean, if you look at it, there's no soffit, there's nothing on that, and it doesn't have weight or body. So that's why I had drawn this, just if these windows need to be replaced, if there's anything that's failing, now would be the time to possibly do a different kind of a roof structure on that.
You're talking just over the little tower, right?
Just
The
the
tower.
tower at the entry.
To match the other.
Well, it just, if you look at it, it's, the roof line goes right to the edge of the, I believe that's ephes, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure, so, and it just doesn't look like it really caps the structure. So I was saying, if these windows at some point are gonna be replaced or anything, then possibly to do a different roof cap on this and change the windows out now, and then we could, I wasn't sure what was happening down here, but you have the same problem with the 100-foot span here at this line.
Well, we
this
did
is-
make a break between the two. The mansard roof was discontinued for a section.
Okay.
And we
Yeah.
put an entrance out there with a covered canopy. But we wanted to diminish the size. We don't want people going there. We don't want the public going there. We want them to go to the existing main entrance. That's for deliveries, that's where the UPS truck goes, and an employee entrance.
But most of it is employees, so correct? That's the way it was explained to us, that it wasn't
Yeah.
really patients going there. or
No, there aren't
anything
any,
like
no.
that.
They all
No,
go
that's
here.
what-
Can you hand
that's
him
what
the
I'm saying.
microphone?
Yeah, no clinical space in the building. Bereaved people come there.
Yes, bereaved people though.
Correct. But
Okay,
there's
for
no
bereavement.
clinical use of the space.
Okay. And so that was the reasoning for breaking that roof line,
Yes.
is to give us that 100 foot?
Well, one of our initial concepts did not have the mansard roof on it. It didn't continue that. I expressed a concern about matching the color, but they wanted, our client preferred that. So that's essentially the alternate that was selected.
If there was no mansard roof, what were you going to propose, a flat roof?
Well, that would be a solid section there, probably just ephes, continuing the same striping around the building.
So you'd have a flat roof building. That's not allowed under our code.
Well, I guess that was.
You'd have to have some way to
Well,
disguise
that's-
it.
That's
a
the next
mansard-
question.
I mean,
Well,
are you
then that's another
considering
reason
a
to keep
mansard
it.
a non-flat roof?
I'm trying to.
That's just.
I'm trying to be as nice as I
Oh,
can.
I'm just asking, so the code prohibits flat roofs, and,
Well, it doesn't have a flat roof.
It
It has
has,
a low slope roof.
yeah,
well, I mean, okay.
which is very
So,
expensive.
The mansard?
No, the low slope roof.
It has a slope. It's a very low
It needs a
slope.
parapet. That was something, that was the other thing that I thought. Is this the same kind of a slope?
It exists.
Yeah, but what is that roof, though? I mean, it's
Metal.
without a, no, the roof on the actual roof of the structure.
Oh, it's metal on the existing portion.
Is it-
And we're gonna put an EPDM roof on the new.
Yes,
And they're gonna match slopes.
Okay, so they're gonna match slopes to what's there, so why wouldn't the parapet continue?
It
Is that-
does,
This doesn't, here, that's showing EPDM roofing.
yes. There's no parapet.
Okay, so why couldn't we do this and continue it? Because that's an expansive, that's 50 feet by 4 feet.
We could put a parapet in the back of the building, it just
Okay.
costs money.
Well-
Hospice,
I know, but,
we have a budget here to work with. We could do whatever you're looking for.
well, it's aesthetics. This is something we're gonna live with for a long time in the
Who's
town.
gonna be back there to see it? There's
Well,
nothing
you can
back
see it from the road right now.
No, this is, you're talking the north elevation, right?
We're talking the south elevation.
There's nothing back
Wait,
there.
are those correctly labeled now? Are we
have
talking
no
about the right
idea.
one?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
putting it as south elevation,
Okay.
because that's what it is,
But this
A1.
isn't a
We're gonna
parapet.
we're
No.
gonna landscape, you're
Right.
not gonna see it from School Street.
It doesn't mean just, if something changes, it can be seen, correct? And then you can't go back and change it. All I'm saying is
Only if you're
why,
walking back there, not many people
so
walk
then
back
why did they do it here then?
there. Why did they do what?
Why did they do this roof here then, originally?
I don't know, I wasn't here.
What roof?
That was 20 years ago.
It's a metal roof.
Right, but why isn't it continued here? For cost?
Yeah.
Okay, I
That's
mean,
low cost, and, you mean, why is it in a metal roof?
why isn't this detail, roofing detail, continued?
Well, here's the main reason.
Okay.
Because the energy code has changed. This building was built by the Pages as a metal building. It's got suspended hung warehouse-type insulation on the top. What we did was, instead of doing a bent every 20 or 30 feet, we built a steel frame building with a metal deck, and we're putting thicker rigid insulation on the top
Yeah.
with a white reflective EPDM roof. That was the main reason. And they wanted a clean plenum below.
EPDM, for those of us who are architecturally challenged in terms, is
Rubber.
rubber membrane?
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
thought.
back a white EPDM roof.
That's a great thing to do, by the way, for the energy code of the state, now that I'm thinking, but I'm just going to go on the record. So to keep your energy costs down, they're going to reflect heat, more heat back out of the atmosphere. Great.
Well, yeah.
It's really smart. Smart. Engineers, I guess, decided to do this.
It's-
Sorry.
Well, it
becoming
costs
more
less for
private.
air
decided to do
conditioning.
this?
It
Well, the
costs
heat
less
island
for,
is the
it-
problem.
It creates
also-
more heat on the outside, though.
but it also costs less to air condition and things like that,
Fine, but
so.
the heat's going to go someplace. It's going back out into the
No,
atmosphere now.
the heat reflects back, Michael. If
Yes.
It's
black,
there
it
anyway.
absorbs it right there.
And you
I
need a lot
know,
of air
and so white
conditioning.
reflects it back on.
The same
So
amount of heat, just where it is.
where it lands, it goes back out into the atmosphere.
It still remains, we have over 100 feet of continuous
Yeah, but you use less
wall.
electricity to cool the building theoretically.
Right.
I'm getting it. That just means that people who are walking around it can feel the heat themselves as well. It heats up the atmosphere, the area around it more with black asphalt absorbing the heat, so it's hot below you and hot above you.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, sure.
I don't have any problem with, I don't think I have any problem with the awnings. I would like the opportunity to take a look at what you mean by extending the parapet. I understand the words.
Okay.
I don't know what it will cost, I don't know what it would,
Right.
I don't know what our architect is going to recommend to us. So I'd like the opportunity to talk to him
I'm
about it.
just saying, you know, as an
Are you looking at it just
exploratory-
because of the visualness of it?
Visualness of it, yeah, because, you know, those trees from that, you could see, you know, even though it says there's screening on there, with those high pines, it's not really screened there. That other house could see stuff in the back.
Let's look at the map for a moment. The parcel as drawn in the subdivision goes here to here. The only screening you can provide is here. The pages will have to provide screening here, or there needs to be an aesthetic enhancement, because Schoolhouse Road turns this way.
Right.
And there are people living here as well as here who can't see
Right.
this.
That's right.
That's basically it.
And the block in the back, up to the south, will be filled in. We'll give you the plan from the landscape architect before the next time we meet, to show you what kind of plantings are going to be between us and the road.
By the way, forsythia is always a good cheap one. I'm not your landscaper, but forsythia is really cheap, and it can grow in the worst soil possible and forms a nice thicket. And it doesn't get too high. In other words, it can block out whatever is below the pines. I thought that when I looked at the picture, Mr. Waters had drawn for this tower, I did think adding the soffit and a lightning rod made a big difference in
Just
terms
raising the pitch of that, it just looks so compressed.
But that's up to price point, et cetera, because it's an existing part of the structure.
On the original main entry,
Oh, this?
yeah.
It's been
And,
there for 20 years, and it wasn't in the program to change that.
Correct, it was not.
That's all. There was just nothing
Nope.
budgeted for it, we didn't address it.
No,
We
we're-
just addressed the addition.
So it's
Maybe
nothing
hide
personal. When the
restrictions.
board gets a site plan, they look at everything and where they can make improvements to the site.
That's why we're
Right.
here. I know, we understand.
Exactly.
but That's why it's not there.
and I know the directions that you're given are totally something that we haven't heard, so I respect and understand why things are drawn certain ways, but I'm just trying to say, how do we meet certain parameters that are good for everybody? I
I'm
think.
listening to your suggestions.
It's okay, it's okay. Tell me once again why you think this is important.
Well, no, it just gives more lift to the structure. That cap on here, to me, it looks like it's imploded.
Whoop, watch out, Joe.
Like that, it did implode. It doesn't have dimension to
Give
it.
me, all right, so again, let me have the opportunity to talk to
Yeah, this
our architect.
is nothing to be decided tonight. That's why we're in a workshop, just so you can hear back. We wanted feedback, so you're getting it. That's
And
all.
you might come up with a better solution, or something that's not that, but something else.
I don't know if we can do it at all, but I do want the opportunity to look at it and discuss it, absolutely.
It's an opportunity. This is the most visible portion of the building to the public, because it's the front, it's the entrance, and it's most visible from
Right.
Route 9G.
Right.
So
This,
it's
I
an
would
opportunity to
take
dress it up and give it more emphasis, to make it a building that you can be proud of, I think. That said, this is up to you guys to discuss and decide.
Thank you.
The important part is that you've got to break up the long mass, and you did that on the front by adding the new entrance in the portico, which I got. But the back area, because it extends, it needs something, and I think what Mr. Waters proposed, a simple little trellis, something.
Window treatment.
Yeah, it'll give it a three-dimensional oomph.
Wasn't aware of the concern, we'll address it.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then that happens here too, on now, which is now the east elevation, that pitch, to extend the wall. But again, that's, to me, it just.
Well, there's definitely nobody on that
It looks like a
side.
steel shed that
That's the side where the deer will look once in a while.
Well, I don't know what's going on.
That's where that's a cliff.
That's about,
Okay.
straight up.
Okay, so,
Got the pond and all this.
By the way, that's where the density will be assigned, is on the cliff.
Yeah.
Right.
that then doesn't bother, but you probably should turn, if you do if we do the parapet across there, or continue that roof line, you should probably turn that corner, because it would look naked just sitting there. It'll look like an old West movie, you know, Wild West and false front.
False front, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
and that's not what the intentions are.
Correct.
Okay.
And nor the direction to give you to do that.
Mhm.
So that is, I think that was pretty much it with what I had.
Do we leave that with them?
Yes.
Rob?
Now,
Okay.
and then just breaking that up, if that goes in here, then that can go away. It doesn't matter, so.
Okay.
And maybe do something here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, this is where that sidewalk this is where you can't move, right there.
Yeah.
The sidewalk, literally, it goes in and there's just no space there to walk around that area. You can go to the right or go to the left, but you're on grass. So we just need to have maybe a drop curve or something along through there.
It's access into the garden back there.
Right, but if you're just walking and want to try to go into the main entrance, you're going to be shimmying.
We'll look at it.
Thank you. Ms. Dexter, any comments?
Not really. I'm intrigued by by Mr. Waters' ideas. By the way, his ideas are incorporated throughout town. He has made some, for some very basic ideas, I think they can make a huge difference, so. But I understand the cost, so.
Ms. Wasser, comments? You looking for something in the code?
Yes, while you're,
I'll find it.
not right now.
Okay.
I just wanted to reiterate Rob's comments, my colleagues, because I was the colleague that talked about the length of that elevation, and encourage you to give it another look.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Pickett?
A question, around the catch basin, there's a proposed retaining wall with a 4-foot-high black aluminum fence. Can you just describe it a little bit more? You're not gonna have a wall with a fence on top, are you, or?
Microphone, please. Sorry.
Right, I understand.
This is a detention pond.
Right.
So in order to be able to add this addition, the existing detention pond had to be remodeled or modified.
Relocated.
Yeah.
So we had to make it steeper. So yes, this is a retaining wall right along here.
Is
And
it
then
gonna be above ground, below ground?
it's basically going to be below ground. It's still the pond. It's just the pond wall instead of the pond wall being grass like it is now. It's going to
Okay,
be.
all right.
And then
So it's gonna be essentially a ground level, and then you're gonna have the
it's going to be
fence
like
attached to that?
Steeply
Okay,
sloped,
fine.
not vertical, but steeply sloped.
It's
Yeah,
going to
okay.
look like the fencing around a pool. If you look at it from a distance, it's going to look
Okay.
like there's a big,
I just wanted to
big
make sure
giant
that
swimming
was-
pool there, but it's dry.
A 4-foot concrete, and then with
You know where
another
Green
fence on
Ponds
top
on
of it.
Gilhooley is down on, we used to be down on Route 9?
Yeah.
There's the new bank that's there. There's a retaining wall there with a fence on top. It's for a different purpose, but it'll look the same way.
Okay.
It has a fence sitting right on top of the same style retaining wall, which is about 4 foot tall. So if you want to see what it visually looks at, that's a perfect place to go to look at it.
Okay.
What
That's-
happened is when they relocated the stormwater detention pond, it now has somewhat steep but softer sides because they've got a lot of room. When you push it east, you go right up into the slopes that rise pretty steeply.
Yep.
So you're having to put in a retaining wall in order to retain the water there. That's basically all there is to
And
it.
there's a sewer line there we can't move.
Correct.
Oh, right.
So the sewer line and the slopes kind of kept us.
Prohibit from anything else.
So we kept the softer slope toward the building and the steeper slope away for safety reasons.
Which makes a lot of sense. Any other questions, Mr. Pickett?
No.
Ms. Weiser?
I actually support Mr. Waters' original idea to make this entrance replicate this, the original entrance, because I think that, again, you have this roof line that once it keeps going, it just keeps going. So to add the tower here, to add it's, again, it's a smaller version of this, but to add this tower up here is going to break up, it'll create like an architectural balance for the building. It'll improve the appearance greatly. I think it just looks like, without this, just this height, this element of height, and just something to make the building balance better. I think that's an important feature. I know he took it away, but I still like it. That's it.
I didn't see that one.
It's in Rob's.
It's.
See the tower
Looking to
there?
replicate.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it would have more than one,
The existing one.
they have more than one tower.
That balances it
Like
out.
in a grocery store where there's a bigger one and a smaller one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a baby one. It balances the building out much better.
Well, these are things that the applicant and his architect to consider. I'll make my comments, I think, pointed like you want them to be. I fully approve of, let's hope that the fire department allows us to use this. I don't understand why that was a fire area in the first place. A fire department, if there's a fire here, is going to pull right over in here to fight it. It's not going to sit there at the very end. This is silly. And it's just empty blacktop sitting there now. So let's utilize it and make it into some parking.
And I can comment on that because we've had false alarms in the building, and every time we've had a false alarm, the fire trucks pull up in the parking lot and stay in the parking lot, right in front of the main entrance.
I had firefighting class for 4 summers when I worked offshore. You're going to go to the central point and stay away from it. That's what you do. And I mean, if a fire is even in this corner, they're still going to probably come here and shoot it rather than sit there. It's because it's a safer access.
School Street.
Or park on School Street, right, depending on where it is. Otherwise, I like the sidewalk coming from here. I know it's a lot of expense. That's why I said once we start asking for sidewalks, I know how much it costs, so I'm always willing to forego some extra elements on the building, but I also should add straight out that I applaud any effort that we can to improve the aesthetics of this town. And 9G has been aesthetically challenged for a long time, and we've been working hard to try to improve that. I just spoke to Mr. Baxter, who told me he's coming back in, by the way, for the assisted living facility, wants to redo the exterior and expand it in the back to add more beds because it's completely full right now.
Wow.
So we have an opportunity here to really dress up this area of town, and it's an entrance into our town. And just for the 9G residents who complain to me sometimes that we're the forgotten, area, I always tell them, we don't propose things. We just wait till they're proposed and then try to work with somebody to make it look better. But 9G is ripe for improvement, so I applaud anything that you can do, given Mr. Waters' suggestions, to do so. I think the landscaping is fine as proposed. I hate to see the loss of all the green space in through here, but I like the fact that you also added the sidewalk in through here, so almost everything that you compensated for, I agree with. One note, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to relook at the plans, but there's referring to, it says, look to A6, sheet dash A6, it's referred to. There's no A6 submitted that I can find. I don't know if I got left off or what. Did you find it?
It's 6-sheet plan set, and one of the sheets happens to be a survey. It's a detail sheet.
Oh,
It's a number problem.
okay. It's a numbers problem. Got it.
All these drawings are being done at the same time, so you think you're going to name it in
That's
six.
fine.
I got you.
I think it's named something else.
That's
Okay, you can just correct those, because I'm like, where's A6? I kept thinking, maybe it's me, then I asked other people. No, they all had it. No
The next,
one had it.
the next set of elevations needs dimensions as well.
Architectural renderings.
I'm sorry.
If we say elevation, do you know what that means?
Of course.
No, I use the models.
Okay. Yes.
Also, what
The
is
other-
the
wait.
tech, what word should we be using?
Renderings?
Or elevation?
Well, an
Elevations.
elevation is a.
That's an elevation, a rendering is
One-dimensional.
And that's a rendering.
Representation of the
Right.
site.
And that's a rendering.
Okay, so,
Right, those are renderings.
That's what we thought. That's why, an elevation to Mr. Gleason, it's still an elevation is that to us. Thank
That's a
you.
rendering over an elevation.
So you do not show dimensions? You don't show dimensions on the buildings?
yes.
But
You're still supposed to label all dimensions for all structures. I know what you're thinking. We should still have it for the record. Because remember, this is a new site plan. I can't refer back to the old site plan because this may be lost in time. So we have to have everything labeled like it's a full set plan, that's all. Or it's a full site plan, that's all. I saw the new ones, but we need to have everything.
Dimensions on the existing.
Yeah, because it's a site plan. It's a site plan, that's all. Anybody else want to add any other comments on landscaping or sidewalks? Oh, right, that's in my earlier comments. The dumpster is shown here.
No, it's still where it's an existing space.
Where is it?
Is that your dumpster?
No.
It's off-site.
They're asking for an easement so that they can still use.
You're going to
the
have,
dumpster.
just as long as, making sure that you know that's going to be part of your,
It's our dumpster.
that's what I thought.
Right next to the dumpsters that are part of
No,
the
it
other
makes sense. I just want to
buildings.
make sure that legally you have all that tied up, because I was like, wait a minute, their dumpster is off their parcel.
That's part of the.
Or part of it and part of it
Yeah,
not.
it's mentioned in the cross easement agreement.
Okay.
Good.
And on the site plan, I put an easement notice.
I just didn't know if it was going to be, because I thought there's no other place for you to put the dumpster.
Right, so, I mean, the way you drew the box makes it look like it's not in the easement area, but I think the easement area might be bigger than you've drawn it.
Right. That's what was confusing.
The easement goes like this, and the dumpster's sitting right here, and then half of the concrete.
The dumpster is also, look, isn't that the dumpster beyond the line?
There's two dumpsters.
Oh, sorry, see that, we couldn't tell
That's someone
that.
else.
Show both
Yeah.
actual physical dumpsters in there, and I think cross-pollinate.
That was one dumpster.
We just didn't want it to be a problem, so. I think that
Yeah,
was-
so I was like, man, it's a big dumpster, it's going off side of the easement.
It's clear enough, there's two dumpsters in here, one's ours, so it's, not all of the dumpster areas are, so.
The one that's yours is on your lot.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll add them in there and label which one's ours.
Gotcha.
I just honestly didn't know that,
Say
realize there were
again?
two.
It's in the
You can't see it.
Yeah.
not in
No,
the.
it looks like it's over the easement, which is why we're.
But it's two, that's the
That's the other
problem.
dumpster.
Yeah.
Right,
We will show the two dumpsters inside.
It's a
the
double
box.
dumpster.
We'll label the dumpster that's ours.
Yeah.
The one that's not.
yeah.
We just didn't want Mr. Page saying that you can't use his dumpster anymore.
We will have that clear. No, we understood that. We will have that clear. There's going to be no question.
So we'll wait to get the next revised plan set that'll show the new landscaping for the garden? Yes? My voice is going up in that stupid way, it means I'm asking a question?
I was promised that, yes.
Okay. And then you two will meet,
We can't
taking a
circulate
look
the
at Rob's designs to see if there's anything that you can incorporate to give it,
We're doing it
as I said, an upgrade, aesthetic
Facelift,
upgrade.
yeah.
And anything, most of the other comments, Rob, they're really mostly Rob's comments, and other board members saying they like what he was proposing. That's basically it, so we'll wait to hear back from you. We'll schedule it out for the next meeting.
Good.
We're making progress.
Thank you.
No, you made, I know what Michelle wanted, which was someone to say, yes, I like the sidewalk placement, yes, I like this, yes, I like this, so you at least heard me say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to continuing with this
Thank you.
review. I'm actually getting excited by this. The next item on the agenda, did everyone get a chance to read my comments? Or you can take them on it now too if you'd like. I
Can't sit down.
briefly, so local law C, which is the rezoning of the town core, we were asked to provide comments. I had requested an extension, we never heard back, and then I was told they were going to table the vote. But now they're possibly considering enacting it, even though the sewer vote is delayed because they've applied for federal funding. So they asked for our comments. I massaged everything we've had from my colleagues and Victoria into one whole by a motion to authorize me to send this over to the town board.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda,
Can you check this, 20 feet?
bay door, sorry, not each bay door. The width of a parking stall is 18 feet. That came from a colleague. That was you, I'm sorry. Oh, I missed, that's supposed to be 25.
No, but with no greater than
25
any bay
feet.
door, so what if
Yes.
it's,
I think you had 25. Did I do a typo there?
I don't remember.
There's a correction in this.
We're looking at 14.
Item 14, that should be 25 feet, so it should be bay, not bay door.
The number, 2 bays.
and a width no greater than
I
25
think you
feet
can leave
for
it at
either
20.
way.
Can we waive that if we need to?
We can send it to
Leave
them.
it at
They
20.
they can ignore it or
Don't
accept
we
it
do it?
anyway.
We voted on it, so
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Then,
We're good.
has everyone had a chance to see that the town is proposing a 6-month moratorium on solar farm applications?
Yes.
Yes.
Importantly, this only applies to those that have no secret determination yet. So the two that we made secret determinations on tonight would be allowed to proceed.
Now, I was looking for that language about not applying to those, and
Me too.
it said, there was one line in it.
This moratorium shall not, however, apply to any pending application before the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board for approval of a solar farm at the time of the enactment of this local law, for which determination of significance has been made by the planning board as lead agency pursuant to the provisions of 6 NYC RR
Thank
Part
you for pointing that
617.
out, because I saw something else that did not make sense.
When's the public hearing?
I believe the 20th,
Oh,
Yeah.
I
like
did-
next Monday.
I did advise the attorney for ATHANAS West that the board was considering a moratorium.
And
I haven't spoken to the attorney or anyone from Lumens.
There's not been an attorney.
They hadn't contacted
There
me.
is no attorney thus far.
Right.
In addition, Ms. Whitman, do you want to mention the news? No, okay. Let's see, rumor or gossip emerged that there might be other changes occurring to ownership of that site. We'll leave it at that. But the primary reason for this is, as I said at the last meeting, Mr. Attorney Raplansky has written, he used ours, which was the first in the county, as a base for other towns. And as they've looked, they've actually decided that.
Keep refining it.
Well, what they decided basically was not only it should be refined, but that we're using the existing setbacks for everything, accessory structures, buildings, rear yard, side yard. And in other towns, in both of the towns, they've made greater setbacks just for the solar. This would allow for more landscaping screen, because if you're going to be tight against the side of a site and you can't occlude the amount of solar penetration that comes down, you're limited as to what kind of screening you can really do. So they'd like to take a look at this and look at, it's funny that he wrote all the other ones too, but didn't come back to the town to think about this until now. But once they've been looking at it, they're like, wait, maybe we should refine this. I think this would also make some of the neighbors happier, because you're going to have automatically a
Force
greater.
bigger lots.
It'll also force bigger lots, but you're going to have more ability to buffer, so that you would have like tall trees.
You could actually plant
low-
tall trees
Yep,
without
yep,
impacting
yep,
the solar
Without impacting
array.
the solar array.
We're
So
also going to try and get a little definition on glare.
Glare and glint.
I don't know that they're going to put that into the the code, but maybe, because I did address that. I said,
Right.
glint is just that occasional quick. Glare is sustained and long.
Right.
It's my understanding that because these absorb sun, that unless the sun's quit, or the earth quits moving, that you really can't have glare. 'Cause it's not
Hashtag
gonna be
Iran war.
sustained. Hashtag what?
Iran war.
I actually just learned recently that there are some solar panel configurations, and I don't think it's the flat one, that they all point in the same direction, and when birds fly through it, they incinerate.
They have them out in Arizona, and there's a central point, and it beams the sun to this, for a concentrated thing.
Wait,
and-
what are you talking
And they
about?
show a
It's for
video, and they say
heating. It's-
flying through, they
it's-
just vaporize.
It's
Yeah,
for-
they vaporize as they
Whoa.
fly
We
through.
That's how hot it is?
No, Mr.
it's
Bird, I
there.
want you to
Wait,
die.
for
It sounds like a
heating
Bond
water.
villain would be saying that, to
Yeah,
incinerate
yeah.
a bird like this. That's terrible.
It's not electric.
Oh, it's solar
It's-
arrays.
It's for heating, recirculation steam system. It's not electrical.
It's heat, yeah.
It's some
It's heat.
kind of solar array
Yeah.
formation.
But it's not
It's
for
a-
collecting
Yeah,
energy.
It faces at a
Array.
central point.
I know what
and
you're talking about now. Yes,
It-
that's different.
It's like taking a magnifying glass, and when you
It's not
can do that
photovoltaic.
with an ant, and they,
Well, so some communities are even putting things in there
Everybody's
about
squinchy.
having them in such a way that you won't have bird incineration, et cetera. So
Bird
Is
incineration.
Hey.
that a real,
So long as it's not the northern long-eared or the Indiana bat, I think that's what needs to be protected
well,
from that
they fly at night,
incineration.
so
Or an
they're
eagle.
probably okay.
True.
wow.
I
So,
have two quick questions.
please.
I think of Victoria. One is, has it been filed yet with the Secretary of State? Because that's when the
No,
6
no, no,
months
no.
runs.
The moratorium hasn't been adopted yet. They're
So,
considering it on the 20th.
Oh,
Right.
that's the public hearing.
right,
Okay.
in the
So if they
meantime,
adopt it that night, it takes about 5 days.
they cannot adopt it that night because they are required to receive comment from the planning board and DC planning.
Well, they may have it.
They just
They have to
circulated
go
this
out to
to
the
us, that's why
public
it's here. I have to make a
Okay.
comment.
So
is everyone in favor of the moratorium, or do you want me to recommend against the moratorium? That's basically it.
Oh, good
In
question.
Do we
favor.
have any items other than, I know we just talked about this a second, but Cream Street and, I know we just gave secret, so that sort of exempts those two that.
Not
we're
sort
gonna-
of, it does. They can
It
proceed
does.
forward.
Are there any other that would be caught in this, in between?
ATHANAS West
And lumens.
And
and
lumens.
lumens.
And
And
lumens.
I have to confess that if ATHANAS West had to come before us to get a secret determination right now, I'd be recommending a, no, I'd be recommending a pause deck.
ATHANAS West has some
There's 4
big issues.
potential significant impacts there. I'd be recommending a pause
Yeah,
deck on that. And
they
I don't
need a
like to do that,
redesign.
but we don't have enough information to do anything beyond that.
And I'm sorry I can't make that meeting, but I don't understand the rush. I would like to be there, but I
And-
can't be there on Monday.
And then my other question was,
You'll fill me
the
in.
recommendations that Warren has seen throughout the state or from other,
Mm-hmm.
when, you seem to be familiar with it, or are we
No,
gonna see that?
I
At what
looked
point
at-
will we see it?
So if
I,
they'll
well,
draft a law. and
I
send it
looked
forward.
at just the 2 that were in the town, Red Hook and Pine Plains, that were in both, read both of them, and I saw changes, and I went, wait a minute, this looks better.
Okay,
So it was kind of me who initiated this, full confession.
okay.
But the way this works is they'll do a moratorium, so our review would stop on those 2 applications. No new application could be submitted because it would just sit there. And during the 6 months, they'll make the revisions, then they must circulate the law to us as well as to DC planning.
And then you can comment on those
Right,
proposed
and then we
revisions.
comment on the changes.
Okay,
In
thanks
the
for
meantime,
clarifying the process.
He is going to look at other areas of the state too, to see what other towns may have done that's even better.
Good.
I don't look at lumens as having quite the same level of environmental issues as ATHANAS West.
No.
It has other issues.
It does have other issues.
It does.
View corridor and, I mean, but I think if there's an opportunity to make the law better, and we have so many of them coming in and we're trying to get more, I think it's really,
Will the law,
I would support the
I mean,
moratorium.
we've had more than any other town because we created the law first. So it encourages it, which is what I think they wanted to do, and still, I think that's a great thing to do. But at the same time, if we've discovered that laws that are out there are now better than ours, shouldn't we try to take those ideas and incorporate them back in?
Yes.
I mean,
will they be incorporated within a 6-month time period?
they have to be.
Well,
Okay, fine.
if they're
No.
not, then
You
the
can-
moratorium
you can
either
extend.
expires or it can be extended.
Extended.
Right. In other words, if the moratorium expires, then it would be the current law they would just continue proceeding under.
Right.
Right. If they extend it, they have to pass another local law to extend the moratorium, at which point this board can comment on that extension.
Do they plan on changing the local law within the 6-month period, so at the end of 6
That's the
months?
plan.
That's the
We
intent.
have a
That's the
whole
intent.
new.
That's the reason why
okay.
there's a moratorium. Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
possible.
Well, I
support it.
understand the moratorium, but
No,
at
that's,
the end of the
that's
6
that's
months,
the
you
reason
want
for
to
the
have a new
length.
set of rules.
That's the reason for the length. They could say 9 months or a year. The 6 months is an arbitrary figure. They think they have enough time, during that
To
period,
put the new laws in place.
well, to write it. Not put the new law in place, to write it. They have to refer it to us.
It has to be
Right.
circulated.
So, yes, effectively put the new law in place, yeah.
Is it
Think
going to
about
be a
it.
completely new law, or is it going to be an
You're questioning,
amendment?
you're
to the
questioning,
existing?
you'll have to read the referral. The legislative intent is just that they basically say that they've found other laws that they think are improvements and would like to go back through it and
So at the
re-examine.
6-month period, we would be working on their
Pretty
intent
good law.
or their
They'd be,
recommendations.
yeah, they'd be showing us at some point.
And then they would
I'm
pass
guessing
the
that they would,
law.
I'm guessing they would want to get it to us
Sooner than
within 3
6,
months.
yeah.
Because
So we can comment.
we would comment, DC Planning would comment, are there any the neighboring towns could comment. Then past that, they would need to hold a public hearing on the new law, it may be revised by suggestions we make. Then they have to file it with the Department of State, and only then does the moratorium end. So they'd have to get a lot of stuff done in those 6 months. But that's not that big a deal if they have an idea of where they're going with the law, which I think they do. My guess is it primarily concerns setbacks, because, like I said, that's what popped out to me when I was with the other towns' laws. But it could also be that they'll resolve the glare thing, maybe be more specific about what it should be in a glare analysis. Because right now it just says there's a glare analysis, and,
Yes.
yeah, who's?
Are you-
Sandia Labs,
Are you aware
others
of
that do
anything
that.
that deals with view corridor, scenic byways, scenic views? Is there
Yes,
anything that
there's
they're
a com-
dealing?
there's a committee-
In the other one?
There's a committee that's supposed to be dealing with creating some overlays for scenic viewshed, overlay districts for scenic viewsheds, and since I'm chairing that committee, I'm a little slow, to be honest with you. So, but we're getting back up there again. We just asked for an extension, and we have all of our pictures on a
Drive.
drive, a big
Maybe
drive,
center.
no, a big drive that needs to go to county planning. County planning can create, by usage of cell phones, they can do technology to locate where we were, pinpoint it in terms of, they can then provide a map of the view sheds that we've taken. Again, we did not consider this to be exemplary view shed for two reasons. One, you've got, even though there's some pretty buildings and it's open space, you've got a deli right there that doesn't really contribute to historic or aesthetic view sheds.
It
And if
has
you're looking
character,
from-
doesn't it?
Pardon me?
Doesn't it have character, the deli?
I suppose it depends on what kind of character you're referring to, my dear.
Yeah. Well,
If you, I wouldn't say it's like great character myself, but then again, aesthetics are in the eyes of the beholder.
Good coffee and food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, great place to stop.
But I don't think view sheds or character are all or nothing,
Yeah.
obviously.
I mean,
One building
if you
does not
look at,
necessarily.
if you look at one narrow angle, but besides that, there's also high-power electrical lines running right through this area that no matter where you stand, you see.
Yeah, because visual impact really has a lot to do with context.
That's why, that's the context you're looking at. So if you were able to just do this, there is some nice view sheds there, but as long as you're looking at this, there's a lot that interrupts sort of the beauty of it, the aesthetic beauty of it. So I've heard from two who are supporting moratorium.
I think that if we were the leaders in creating a law and implementing it, then it's really our responsibility to keep it the best it can be.
Well said. Literally, well said.
So, yes, I support.
And I'll say as long as it's within 6 months.
Then I'll write a letter recommending that they adopt the local law.
Yes.
With some explanations.
Vote to authorize the chairman.
I would
Oh,
like to
yes,
make a
make a-
motion to authorize the chairman to draft a comment letter to the town board on the moratorium.
Supporting the adoption of the moratorium.
Supporting the adoption of the moratorium.
Supporting the adoption of the moratorium.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. I believe
Need a
that's.
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No
Second.
benefit.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks,
Tonight's
everyone.
roll, second will be played by Scott Rosser.
You know what we need?